Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to episode 41 of the Stevie Richards Show. Today we're going to talk about WrestleMania 17, or here's a preview of a segment. As the set displayed, WrestleMania X-Seven. Now I'll turn it over to my co-host, James Romero.
I'm so pleased you mentioned that because I had theorized that someone messed up. But we'll talk about that soon.
Oh, I was right there. I was at the base of it when they were looking at it and said, oh, no. And I had to walk away. I was laughing, but we're going to talk about it. It's a semi-funny story, but also I have a great deal of sympathy because being somebody that builds out studios and tries to produce this stuff, when a tripod is not level, I lose my mind. So I can't even put in the words spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably or more, and looking and going, oh, okay. So we'll get to that.
Yeah, as Stevie said before, it is the behind the scenes of WrestleMania 17. We actually watched the show and then we sort of realized there wasn't that much to talk about the show apart from the fact that it's just a great show. I'll tell you one thing, we'll get to the intro in a second. WrestleMania 17 really highlights how different WWE is now to WWF, even late WWF era. There's no filler. It's just maybe a segment in between, straight into the next match. Bit of a segment, straight into the next match. It's like I have a birthday sometimes waiting in between matches on WWE shows these days.
Yeah, basically the entrances on Raw are somehow longer than ECW December to Remember as a whole. It's very much true. It feels like Raw and SmackDown now are ECW December to Remember formats every week. Stretch it out. You got to stretch it out.
We need Joey Mercury and Johnny Nitro. Get back out there. Make this tag match last 80 minutes, for goodness sake.
They're still wrestling that match to this day. It's still going on.
They probably are. Oh, goodness me. Anyway, let's do the intro very quickly. One more thing, because we don't do this enough. Behind the scenes of WrestleMania 17, we're going to be talking about various different things about that. A couple of the matches, including Stevie himself being a part of one of the matches. But in my mind, I thought you were in the match, but you were just managing on the outside. We'll talk more about that later. We're also going to be talking about Swerve Strickland and the finale of AEW Dynasty pay-per-view. Is that the most hated AEW pay-per-view finish ever? We're going to be talking about, of course, how can we not, Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton. That all-time, would you call it a howler or blooper or whatever it was? They went off the rails on that one. We're also going to be doing what went right. We're going to be talking about who's got the greatest spears of all time, Bron Brekker or Bill Goldberg. And we're going to be talking about what went wrong. Willow, Nightingale and Marina Shafir from AEW Dynamite last week, because we recorded this on a Wednesday. We didn't have time to do it last week, but we're going to do it this week. But once again, very quickly, my YouTube channel, James Romero. I rarely post at the moment because there's so much stuff happening backstage, behind the scenes in WSI, because we're trying to launch something new as well that I've not posted very much on there, but thank you everybody who subscribes. And then there's also Stevie's stuff as well, Stevie Richards Fitness on YouTube, and even more importantly, the new tech channel from Stevie Richards, which was the old analysis channel, putting those subs to hard work finally again after a year of dormancy.
Yeah, so many people are happy about that switchover and rebrand. They're very happy about it. But really, that's my kind of like, I guess, my relaxing, it's not very relaxing sometimes, hobby type of thing to show you the behind the scenes of not only here at the Stevie Richards Show, but also Stevie Richards Fitness, how I create stuff, and hopefully can empower people to create content on their own or teach them something as I learn. It's a very casual channel, but I am obviously, just like you, looking to make it very professional and putting way too much pressure on myself. So, you know, the burnout episode of the Stevie Richards Show coming very soon. Not the show, but just the men involved with it. The show is very fresh still and still has a lot of life left in it. I do want to bring this up. You have it in the notes. I'm very happy to people for the support, but also the biggest question over the past week or two, for some reason it's popped up, is t-shirts, merchandise, Stevie Richards Show store, whatever it might be. When's that coming? We want to buy a shirt. We want the, future episode, a picture of a drink on it. We want a Stevie Night Heat shirt. We want just the Stevie Richards Show shirt. Or we can't do AHA because, Global Force Gold will sue us. Mm-hmm. But it's really on a positive note. It's cool. We're working on that. James, myself, and also we have somebody that's going to be creating art for it. We're really going to put out quality stuff. we definitely want to buy stuff on our own, test it out, make sure the shirts and the merchandise look good for everybody. So it may not come today or tomorrow, but very shortly, as soon as we can get it up and running. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think sooner rather than later as well, we've got Stevie Night Heat t-shirt, which was your suggestion. We're sort of finalising the graphics on that. We're going to have just the Stevie Richards show, maybe even some BWO merchandise. Who knows? One more thing, or two more things actually, with what I mentioned. Stevie Richards' cameo, of course, is blowing up. The more we mention it, the more people want cameos from Stevie Richards, because not only is it finally priced for everybody, all the consumers out there, but Stevie, instead of just saying, oh, happy birthday, well done on coming out, or whatever it might be, he actually puts in the effort more than most people that would cameo. So you will get your money's worth and more when you go to a Stevie Richards cameo or make an order from Stevie Richards cameo. But most importantly of all, dare we say, the Stevie Richards Show Patreon. Stevie, okay, what is actually coming up in the next few days for people to watch that people already thought was up last week?
Well, we already have the Bret Austin WrestleMania 13 watch along, which is by far the most popular thing. So we're glad we're doing this WrestleMania match series. People were interacting, and we kind of mentioned it in passing. Oh, yeah, the Hollywood Backlot Brawl. But for some reason, people's ears perked up in a good way. That is this Monday at the time of this recording and at the time of the episode coming out. This coming Monday will be Roddy Piper versus Goldust, WrestleMania 12, Hollywood Backlot Brawl. But also, we decided we were just already there. We go back and forth and kind of talk about different elements outside the match. We also watched the debut promo of Mark Marrow, according to Todd Pettengill. Marrow. Mark the Bone Marrow. There you go.
It's almost like a marrow, like a melon.
I've never heard of that. Marrow is a melon?
Or is a marrow a melon? Or is it more like a...
Bone marrow is the only thing. There's,
It's a kind of big, large green fruit.
That's a watermelon.
Some description.
Yeah, you're right.
No, there's also marrow as well, which is something different. Or is it a veg? Doesn't matter.
Right.
Anyway,
let's get back to it before CT sets in and I totally forget.
Yeah.
But what was the bonus? I did already forget. What was the bonus thing we watched? We watched
Ultimate Warrior versus Triple H. Well,
yeah.
Hunter Helmsley specifically. And Stevie was watching it under the impression that, oh, right, so obviously he was getting punished for the click hug in Madison Square Garden. I was like, no, that was after this.
And I was ultimately confused, to use a pun. I was confused. What are they doing to this guy then? It made no sense. Really strange.
Have you seen that meme where it's like the confused guy and then there's just like equations just flying towards his head, and you're just like, what? Why would this... Nobody knows why this happened, or other than it must have just been the ultimate power play. And also he was lazy.
Do you think it's more of Ultimate Warrior's aggressive creative control in this, that he just shut it down and they had to play ball because the company was literally fighting for their financial lives? So that's why Warrior brought back through Linda McMahon, because Vince did not want Warrior back. Linda was the middle person with this, and they brought him back, and they were trying to work in line with the comic book that he came out, which was very, very strange, with like basically assaulting
Bondage.
Santa Claus in one way or another.
Yeah. In every
Did
which
I
way.
imagine that wrong? Did that actually happen?
Yes. He straps up, he trusses up Father Christmas like just some dungeon pervert kind of thing.
It's very Pulp Fiction-ish, isn't it?
It is. That's a perfect way of putting it. It's the gimp. That's the perfect way of putting it. You know, there's more of a story with that as well. Is the reason being is because when Ultimate Warrior had agreed to come back, and I think this might have been pre-WrestleMania. They were at is it the NAPTE convention, which is a television convention, big television convention, or I don't know if it is anymore, but it was at the time. And they'd used the Ultimate Warrior's logo, the mask logo, on their stand, their stall. And Warrior found out about it. And they said, I didn't give you permission to use my logo on this convention stand. It's basically trying to promote Ultimate Warrior coming back. And then he said, well, listen, I'm going to sue you over it unless you buy 1 million of my comics at $1 a piece. And therefore, he managed to get a huge amount of money out of the WWF before he even set foot in the ring. So he was already getting legal with them before he'd even returned.
Wow. That must have really made Vince very happy to have him back. So I'm surprised that Ultimate Warrior didn't take the pedigree in 2 minutes and then get jobbed out. There's the other part of that at the Comic-Con. This is based off his shoot interview that I remember, that he walked in there and he always believed from the comic book was all over Comic-Con, but it wasn't attached to Ultimate Warrior. And he was very miffed about that. So it's just, and Vince used the Meltzer line from way back in the day. Plans change, pal. And so it definitely changed. So
yeah, he would not last long in 1996. We need to watch another match, right? And it's Goldust versus Ultimate Warrior. It's the next month after WrestleMania 12. I'm not even sure there's any physicality. It's the weirdest quote unquote match interaction you will probably ever see. It's almost like mime artistry.
Is it like two singles wrestlers in the ring? I'll have to watch it again. I don't remember. Is it like two singles wrestlers happen to be in the ring, happen to be having a match, but it doesn't seem to be with each other?
No, they don't even wrestle. That's the thing. They don't wrestle at all. They do this weird skit. It's the worst. It's the least entertaining thing. I would have asked for my money back, right? One more thing before we get off Ultimate Warrior is there was a rumor going around, or it was reported at the time, that after Ultimate Warrior's match, people started getting up and leaving. And even more so, they started doing that during the Iron Man match.
Wow. So WrestleMania 12, people were getting up and leaving after the Ultimate Warrior match, or was it after this? Oh, the Goldust match, they got up and left.
No. They would get. I think some got up and left, or supposedly some got up and left during the Iron Man match, but a lot of people got up and left after Ultimate Warrior had wrestled, and that was in the first hour.
No, that's what I'm saying. They left.
Yeah.
They left after seeing him, but not watching the main event of WrestleMania 12.
I think more people were getting up and leaving. Supposedly, the story goes is that people were getting up and leaving during both those periods, after Ultimate Warrior had finished, and during the Iron Man match as well. It's crazy that people don't want to get their money's worth.
Well, it was advertised as a 60-minute Iron Man match. I don't know what you had said before, 60 minutes is a long time to invest any amount of time if it happens to be on your television set. But when you make the conscious decision not only to buy the pay-per-view and sit at home, which you can get up and walk away and come back, but you literally bought a ticket, paid for parking in California of all places, and sit there, and then you sit there and go, man, we're 25 minutes in. I didn't expect this. I'm out of here. Like, what? And it went to overtime. You really would have been pissed off if that happened. I think it was an excellent match, but man, 60 minutes in this day and age, I would say this, and I didn't say it during the watch along, the sweet spot that I've seen in the past, and one of the best ones I've ever, there's two of the best ones. I don't know exactly which match one of them was. WCW did the 30-minute Iron Man match better than anybody. When you had Dustin and Rick Rude, I believe. There was Ricky Steamboat and Rick Rude, I believe, too. Or was it Sting and Rude? They had 2 or 3 30-minute Iron Man matches on pay-per-view that were excellent, dude. And I thought with Shawn and you can't have Mabel versus Kevin Nash in a 60-minute Iron Man match. So
I would watch that.
What, you would watch it?
Yeah, just out of the perverse pleasure of it, like Tiffany and Charlotte.
Tiffany,
I'd
Stratton,
be watching that.
Yeah, I would watch it because I like both guys. They're good. But also, I'd be like 60 minutes. I don't even know if I can go 60 minutes. But Bright and Shawn, with the same vein of that, they're the workhorses that can go 60 minutes. But that's not the question. Should you go 60 minutes on something like that? I still think it turned out in retrospect as an excellent match with a story and then the overtime thing. But I can see why people said, oh man, an hour. But I get back to my first point. You bought a ticket. You knew exactly what the match was going to be.
You might hate me for this. I left a Rolling Stones concert early once. And the reason was because it was in Old Trafford. It was Manchester United's ground, right? And that is about the worst venue in the world for getting a drink. So I just after a while, I was just dying of thirst, refusing to queue up for an hour. And we thought, you know what? I'd rather just beat the traffic home. And was it Charlie Watts? Who's the drummer? He died a few years ago.
I don't know. I'm not that old. You do understand
neither
that, right?
am I. I went.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Anyway, We had a theory that he died long before, and they just it was a marionette puppet thing. He looked like a robot. WrestleMania 17. Let's get straight into it. We're going to do the news and everything at the end of this show, but something, because WrestleMania 41 is coming up very, very soon. We thought it'd be nice to do some WrestleMania-themed stuff in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to go back to WrestleMania 17, and we want to know about the behind-the-scenes process of the entire weekend of the event. That being said, what's the first thing you do that's WrestleMania, not just relevant, but part of the festivities of WrestleMania? Is it the fan access thing, or is there something before that?
Well, the very first thing you do, obviously, most times, if I can recall correctly, you would leave right from the TV, say Raw or SmackDown, depending upon what era it is, and then you would spend the week there up until the Sunday. That's the way I believe it was. You would leave either Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning, depending upon what the last TV of that week is. And then you go straight to the WrestleMania city and you fly in, you get to the hotel, which most of the boys are all staying at the hotel for that WrestleMania week. Then you have to check in. So you check in with usually Howard Finkel or somebody in a dedicated ballroom where they have the travel office, production office, usually have some meetings and stuff, but mostly it's the administration of WWE doing everything to make sure the talents have what they do. You have your pile of WrestleMania merch with a couple t-shirts or whatever too, other kinds of gift bags maybe for some talent, not all. And then you would just get your instructions and there's a schedule for the week. Now, when we were towards the end, it happened, but for most of my tenure in WWE, there wasn't a ring set up in a dedicated ballroom with practice times dedicated to a window of an hour or however long people want to do that. That's the new way that I saw towards the end, and now that they are setting up rings in the hotel ballroom or a dedicated spot that they can have access to rehearse from 1 to 2. It might even be in the building, but for this case, they will put it in the hotel ballroom somewhere to practice because you have privacy. You don't have any cameras in the arena. You can go over your match. There's still some level of kind of kayfabe or protecting the match and the finish and stuff. So then after that, you would check in, do your hotel stuff, and act accordingly. Some people, when they flew in, they may not even have checked in because they already had a signing, an appearance, a radio show, going to talk to a school, whatever it might be. But most times guys and girls would check in, get their passes, get their room keys, get whatever instructions, look at the schedule, and then act accordingly from that.
I didn't realize there was a ring set up in the hotel beforehand. That is
really
really fascinating.
Towards the end, not in the beginning of my stuff, but I would say somewhere around mid in the ruthless aggression area. So we're talking about maybe 04, 05 maybe. It wasn't at the Garden for WrestleMania 20. There's no room. But depending upon the venue and the hotel and how close it is to the arena, some hotels were kind of right there. Like Orlando for, I believe it's WrestleMania 24. My least favorite thing was not being in control and having to be shuttled back and forth. I always opted to take my rental car and then do the Rolling Stones, James Romero thing and beat the traffic.
You'd be stunned how many times I've done that for gigs. So, right, they've got a ring set up then. Do people have slots? So, you can use the ring from, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., but we've got to reserve it for, The Rock or whoever, for the most time or something.
Yeah, that's what I noticed, that there are, and it's the way to do it, because obviously, what if everybody wants to get in the ring at once? You have a dedicated hour. Usually, when I was looking at it, it was like an hour. I'm sure for Taker, Triple H, Rocking, or as much time as you need. It depends. Those are the matches that are important to make sure you get them down. But I'm trying to think of the building that it was at one time for me, and I can't recall which hotel had it, but it became a thing. And now I know they have multiple rings. I've seen rehearsals where they have 2 to 3 rings in a big ballroom or a separate part of the arena or stadium that you can practice.
It sort of now makes sense. I mean, not only because it's outdoors, but because so many WrestleManias are in Florida, and then NXT's just down the road for the most part. Maybe that's why they do it, just so they can, everyone can practice for days.
Well, I wouldn't say it's down the road. Orlando traffic, I travel to Orlando sometimes. It's a lot like when I lived in the Atlanta area. Oh, this is only 9 miles. It's 40 minutes. So it's not a convenient, that's why they tend to, what I saw, they tend to try to put it in the hotel because you can rehearse, you can have the privacy, no cameras catching you, and you can go right back up to your room and then shower afterwards. So it's a much more practical way to use it, unless you're 10 miles from the arena or the location from where they put it, that factors in.
So before we even get to like fan access and stuff, are you, especially in the RTC era, are you farmed out? Are you sent out, shuttled out to do interviews and publicity for WrestleMania? Or because you're a heel at that time, would you not be sent out to do that kind of thing?
Oh, very limited. No. Not during that week, it was strictly mostly baby faces. Now, I did some signings at Fan Access. I think I did one as Right to Censor. Then Victoria and myself did one at WrestleMania 19, which, by the way, that'll be our next episode covering WrestleMania 19 for episode 42. We're reminding ourselves as well as you. But no, they still kind of had that thing. And who would want maybe people that were like, I want to get the heel Steven Richards autograph or a picture with him or whatever. But they insulated the Right to Censor in a way from that. They probably saw it as counterproductive.
I was wondering if anyone, like when you were doing the Right to Censor stuff and someone came up to you and went, I loved you in the BWO. And if someone had said that to you at that time,
I ignored it. It never happened.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I recreated that selective amnesia with Dr. Stevie. I never wrestled in ECW. I don't know what you're talking about.
WrestleMania Fan Access then. I mean, it's changed a huge amount over the years. Apparently now you can get tattoos and stuff and, getting possibly overpriced T-shirts. Just everything's overpriced with WWE these days. But they weren't humble affairs in the early 2000s. They were pretty big deals back then, I think. But what do you remember of the fan access stuff going on at the time?
My most intriguing part of it, that really from the logistics standpoint, but also the forward thinking of Vince or whoever in the company that said, when these moments happen, we need to put this particular, talking about, say, the Corvette that got cement poured into it, or other items that were used, the Taker cross during the Stephanie segment. They saved those for posterity. You would think, oh, the prop's gone, get rid of it, we'll write it off, send the Corvette to a junkyard. But they made those exhibits at the Fan Access. And I've always felt like that was the most ingenious thing to do, not only to have you recreate the moment as a fan when you see that Corvette that's filled with cement, but then take a picture with it. That is, and they, that goes out to everything, anything that they could save. It's kind of like the treasures, the lost treasures thing, or the curator of the WWE like universe, like factory or warehouse.
Yeah, the archivist. The archivist does a great job. Yeah.
You got to give WWE credit to have, like, you and I would be like, okay, get rid of it. You know what I mean? Whatever. But they would take up space because every WrestleMania, how in the world did they get all that stuff from Stanford to wherever? How many tractor trailers? How much money? That's where WWE does it right and has just the 10,000 foot view of, in 10 years, people are going to want a picture with this. It's pretty cool.
So did you have to do any of like the fan meet and greets beforehand? Because like these days, you've got to pay $25,000 for a lunch with John Cena. He could just not turn up and just say, well, you couldn't see me.
Well, my prediction would be, these prices now, it's crazy, isn't it? But my prediction is that even if you paid certain fans to show up to get a signature and a picture with me at the Right to Censor time, they would still say no. They believed the gimmick so much back then. It did what it was supposed to do. Fan access, if I acted nice, would take away the entire experience of what you're going to see at that pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm. Whether you were fans or whether you were DJs, that is true. We won't talk about that for now. So, why don't we talk about backstage at WrestleMania itself? Is there an earlier call time than you'd normally get for a big show?
Well, it all depends on where you're at. If you're in California, much like that WrestleMania 12 pay-per-view, I'm assuming it's like an 11 a.m. call time. Usually 1 p.m. on the East Coast, but you're not going to go back to 10 a.m. But with that being said, if you did have a rehearsal early in the morning, say 9, 10 a.m., and it happened to be at the arena, say it's like the Raven Big Show the Raven Big Show Kane hardcore match, you kind of have to map it out and walk it through. So they may have gotten there at 10 a.m. or it's Houston. So I would say 11 to 12 before anybody gets there. So you're not riding a golf cart, which we'll get to that soon. But yeah, those kinds of matches where you're really mapping it out and they're building a room for you to get thrown through the window and stuff. I think it involves a lot more. Now, these guys are here all week. So for all I knew, they went there Thursday or Friday and already rehearsed it and got it all done. So it might not have been a different call time for them.
Is it like any other pay-per-view for you or any other big show, or even, you as a veteran at this time of how many years, depending on the WrestleMania, of course, do you still feel the pressure? Do you still feel the atmosphere changing a little bit because it's the biggest show of the year?
It's almost like you got too much time between that TV and WrestleMania to overthink it. And it's all around you. And when you hear rehearsal, then it becomes a completely different kind of feeling if you're involved in that. Now, I'm going to say this. If you're not involved in anything, it's a long week and it sucks. It sucks. And I'll tell you the story right now that I said I was going to tell. I'm going to preface it with this. We all get into this business, at least in my era, to go to WWF, WWE, and be on WrestleMania, be a part of WrestleMania, be on the show. Obviously, main event isn't going to be for anybody and everybody. It's just a select few that can make to that. And then staying in that spot is even more difficult. So just being part on the pay-per-view, having a match, doing something where you can create a memory, a moment for yourself, and hopefully the fans and the company that will continue to put you on the pay-per-view. But every year that I wasn't a part of anything, and even the kickoff battle royals, I don't count those at all because you get eliminated in 6 seconds, you're not in a battle royal. It takes you longer to get ready for it than to be a part of it. They used to call and say, you are cordially invited, or we are inviting you to WrestleMania. And I would be, after the first 3 times of that, because they did it more times doing that than saying, you already know you're booked on it or not at a certain point. And I would be like, I decline your invitation. And they would kind of laugh. And I was like, and I would say, no offense, but I want to be on the show. I'm not saying go over. I'm not saying do whatever. I want to be a part of WrestleMania. And they go, and as a talent and person who has pride in my work, when you're having me go for a week to not be part of anything, that stings a little bit. That stings my ego. Also, if you're not figured in, you actually lose money that week because they cover your hotel, but you pay the rental car. You have to pay for all your incidentals, your food. That's fine. First world problems. But the problem is that rental car, most times up until a certain point where they would have Raw and SmackDown in the same city, they would combine them. More times than not, we were traveling to another city. So there's a one-way rental, which is a lot more expensive than returning to the same airport. If you could help it, you would do it anyway. But for me, deep down, my pride and my ego, which you have to have an ego to get into professional wrestling and want to do anything, I would say, why bother wasting the money bringing me in? Now, people had said well, you got a bad attitude about that. I go, no, I got the right attitude. I want to be on the show. Try to do that with anybody else. Try to tell, hey, Steve Austin, you're off this year, but we still want you to spend a week. I think there's an F-bomb coming your way if you say that. And I'm not comparing myself to Steve Austin, but no matter what level you're on in this business, your objective is to be on those big shows and make the most amount of money as possible.
Hey, you're a Steve. He's a Steve.
Hey, you're going to be in the Battle Royal. 6 seconds for being a smartass.
We need a future episode.
That was literally when Ricky Steamboat or whoever else was talking over that WrestleMania 24 kickoff Battle Royal. They literally said, we need an elimination every 6 seconds until Kane and Chavo are left. It was the ECW title Battle Royal. And then Kane went over. So we had to literally bell rang out, right away.
At least he made that title match important.
I have to give WWE credit. Since the past 2 episodes, I've reconsidered my stance, and they've they just honored ECW to no end. It was just amazing to witness and such a pleasure, every minute of it.
I hadn't written this in the notes, actually, but because you mentioned hotels, did they go all out and get everybody the hotel? Because I thought they didn't. They would only spring for your accommodation during WrestleMania week.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, they would spring for the hotel, but everything else. And springing for the hotel is just like first class tickets and a tour bus. They're getting the money back. Don't worry.
Now, is WrestleMania different backstage to other shows I'm talking about? I believe families are welcome, or they encourage you to bring your family, like for that time only, I guess, to the pay-per-views, or at least more so than other shows. Any other difference, like, catering, extra work that goes into the shows if you're on it, etc.
Well, I noticed families, but I don't think families were just wandering around backstage. I think the Hall of Fame was one thing that the families were really a part of, and that would be something where the catering, from what I remember, did have families in there, but it wasn't the wrestling show. As far as WrestleMania, the different feel, well, you got to think, we weren't doing stadium shows at the frequency they do them in 2025 or even previous. So the first thing is, you're driving up to a huge stadium that you might have watched football games, baseball games, and you're like, now I'm a part of like this stadium that I remember where the Eagles played this, the Cowboys, or played, I watched Phillies play the Astros at the Astrodome. You start to get that crossover, like, wow, I'm in the same stadium that Mike Schmidt played in. And, that's the way I looked at it from an outside casual sports fan perspective. But it's a bigger scale. You're hoping it's a bigger paycheck, and we can get into pays. I don't mind talking about it, but you're hoping everything is bigger. The pay, the notoriety, your crossover appeal, a new fan base, more merchandise sold. You think now, more people, more everything. But of course, from a production standpoint and what Vince and everybody, the bigger problems and bigger challenges to overcome as well, and a bigger rent for the building.
I was going to mention the venue, but we'll get to that later because we're going to talk about open air or bigger venues as well, and how that how that differs from regular venues, I guess. Do certain people get private dressing rooms for WrestleMania that they might otherwise not get?
Looking back, not exactly. I mean, there's rooms people dressed in, and then there were smaller dressing rooms, maybe a couple top guys, and then they got top guys that are working each other, maybe in the same locker room. But for the most part, there were so many locker rooms, or so many rooms that you can convert into something. It was spread out pretty good. But I do remember being in locker rooms, and it was still people all around. You just have to feel your way. Just like if you're in the locker room for the first time, you have to feel out, all right, who's where. And obviously they'll have Vince's office. And then they have one at the building. And then I said production office, travel office at the hotel as well. They would double that up sometimes. But I wouldn't see like Taker, Hunter, Rocky, maybe Hogan when he was there for whatever WrestleManias I was a part of. But I never really remember, like, don't go in there. That's that person's room.
You mentioned Vince's office. Now, I know for TVs, people would, line up to basically air their grievances with Vince McMahon every single week, or Jim Ross, or John Laurinaitis, or whoever it was. I suspect that no one bothered Vince during WrestleMania night, or morning, or afternoon, or whatever it was with their grievances. They'd leave it for another time.
That all depends. I mean, if you have a direct line to Vince, obviously you have the entire week or longer, depending upon your match, to politic that stuff. But if there's any last minute stuff, I'm sure Vince is talking to Austin, Rocky, Hunter, Taker, the usual suspects on the phone or whatever. But I think it's pretty much solidified, at least outside of any crazy stuff, by Friday would be my guess, is the last, or if you're rehearsing something and then Pat or one of the agents goes, wait a minute, maybe we do this instead of this, that also might need to be approved for, little tweaks to the matches, angles, spots, stuff like that.
Have I pretty much hit everything as far as behind the scenes of WrestleMania? And should we move on, or is there anything else?
Well, let's encapsulate everything that I said. You might talk about certain things, or they might have stuck out when I said, if I'm not a part of it, I don't bother bringing me. But it does come from a place of wanting to contribute to the company, and looking at the WrestleMania thing as a whole, and coming into the building and having any part of the show is an incredible honor. It's crazy. It is, talk about childhood dreams as a cliche these days, but watching myself as far as being on that stage, being in that ring, looking around and saying, wow, anybody could be a part of this. And here I am being a part of it.
Now, something else you were a part of, not a part of, but you were witness to, was the WrestleMania 17 stage design. Now, I've done a video that will be out hopefully in the next couple of weeks or so, and it's my top 10 WrestleMania stage set designs of all time. WrestleMania 17 makes that list. It was the first one that was really mind-blowing for, the size and scale of it. But then there was something that really stood out to me, and apparently I'd figured something had gone wrong, basically, and you confirmed that I was right. So what happened?
It is a what went wrong segment. I did send you screenshots on different entrances that showed the, like we joked at the beginning, WrestleMania X-Seven, but that's what it was. Now, what I noticed was, first of all, the scope of those, for lack of a better term, arches, towers, whatever the WrestleMania, there was WrestleMania on one side and then 7 on the other. And it's amazing to see something graphically, like the graphics were those yellow streaks and kind of, shapes for the graphics package, for the music video, for everything, for the WrestleMania 17 logo. To take an artist conception of what it should look like, and then I don't even know, I would love to see WWE do a documentary on how we build the set, how we do it. Here's the artist rendering. Now let's go to so-and-so construction, kind of like Epic Universe that just opened up in Florida on the soft open. I loved watching those buildings. Like, what do you do as a construction worker, as a construction company, as a construction manager? How do you, as the scope of that, build it into reality? What are materials? What's the cost? And of course, you got to get there a week before. That was one of your questions. It's minimum a week before WrestleMania to build it. Dare I say it now, it's 2 to 3 weeks. They show the progress over the course of weeks now before those massive sets. But I would love to know. But I know that when I walked there, I said they had a fire marshal there, and I believe the towers or the arches were too high and they were in the line of the pyro. That's my guess. That fire code or something, building code, you couldn't build it as high as this, especially if you're going to have fireworks and pyrotechnics. So that's my guess, because they had the fire marshal there. They had a bunch of people there. And I remember Shane McMahon looking, because he was not far off. And just the look was like someone said something to him. And I think it was, we have to shorten this thing. We have to lower it. And it's just like, how in the world are we going to even do this? Well, easily, we're going to put the I and A down on the floor on this side and the N from the 7 on this side. WrestleMania X-Seven, the showcase of the Turtles.
The Immort. It's amazing as well, because I was wondering, looking at the stage, the Perspex boxes, once again, this is for the hardcore match especially, that Kane does a big elbow drop on Big Show to get the win in the hardcore match, the triple threat. Were they there beforehand, or did they think, damn, we need something to really break up what is now this complete disaster of this banner hanging, because now that the tower's lower, kind of thing?
You're talking about the kind of like the sugar cube glass or the plexiglass stage that was built. I don't know, dude. I don't know if that was a last minute thing. They built that thing pretty damn quick. If that was a last, but you could still see when Taz came out, you could see the letters on the floor that they were kind of like a backdrop type of thing, brought down. I feel for the company, because in theory, it was such a great thing to build that huge stage. Imagine the shot you can get. They did get the shot of like the steady cam of Taz walking out, and you saw the scope of that huge, and that's your era. You had a big set, but you had one screen and nothing too fancy, just a very industrial look to it.
We shall now discuss your involvement on screen WrestleMania 17.
If you look at the entrance, we'll talk about the match itself. the entrance, that was done on purpose to not have me leading them out yet, but have me behind Godfather and Bull. It was symbolic, but it was intentional on the office's part that eventually I would be behind everybody to where you wouldn't even see me. So everything, that's why when we say stuff like, there's no way that was by accident, they do so many little petty things intentionally. And that was one that was like, I knew it was we were way into the beginning of the end at this point with WrestleMania 17.
Well, that's fascinating then. So someone's sending you out and you're saying in order and say, right, you stay in this order. Someone's telling you to do that at Gorilla.
No, most specifically, you're not in front. Didn't matter where I was at, but whoever's in front, you're not in front leading these guys. They didn't put it that way, but they're like, when you guys come out, Stevie, it's got to be them too. Then we'll, if there was a fourth person, say Ivory was there, I would have been behind it. It would have been 2 rows of 2 with me behind them.
Would this have been, a dissension thing? Should the breakup of Right to Censor, I know we're not talking about this now, but we are. Should the breakup of Right to Censor have gone on longer? Because it sort of just fizzled out almost immediately. But the way you're saying that now, it sounds like they may have at least at one point had grander plans to drag it out a bit longer.
No. I think it should have went longer before the breakup angle started, and then it could have went suddenly all wrong. But no, we had a lot of life and left in us. And by what I say with that is the same type of timeline as Dr. Stevie, or the same intention of the Dr. Stevie character. Our characters were perfect to get baby faces over, but they didn't utilize that. We could have went all the way across the roster and got a lot of baby faces over, and then turned Val and Godfather babyface and had 2 more baby faces and just kind of fizzled out from there to where we lose everything. So yeah, they could have been, people think it was a lot longer. The Right to Censor was barely over a 1-year run. That's not too long for something that had a lot of legs at one point.
Back to the match then. What is the process of, I don't know, it depends on different people and who's in the match. I know you're outside the match at this point and, working out where you'd sort of interfere. Working out the match and the process. So for people who don't know, it is Bull, Val, Goodfather versus the APA and Taz. So with all those 6 personalities, is it just pretty easy to shove a match together?
Well, it depends. I didn't have a whole lot to do with anything. That spot was given to me. I did it. Of course, Jackie was in the match as well, as far as being on the outside. The thing about that spot, just to speak about that very quickly, I took a DDT and then I went back to my corner. Hey, I didn't like that. I didn't like it at the time, and I don't like it now. There should have been something where even if Jackie somehow threw me over the top rope, you know what I mean? Sidestepped me, low bridged me, even if she tried to clothesline me, whatever, to not knock me out with a DDT, because it looked good and I had to get right back on my feet and then cheer. It was a disconnect. I do know that, there was some stuff going on with talking the match. I at that point, it was mostly white noise to me because, like I said, I wasn't favored at all. And this thing was the beginning of the end, and I saw the writing on the wall. So it's literally, you talk about WrestleMania. Usually you want to enjoy WrestleMania. And I was like, I can't wait for the match to be over. I can't wait for the pay-per-view to be over. I can't wait for this week to be over and get the hell out of here and get away from these people. That's not the right attitude, by the way. I should have savored every second of it. But wrestling kind of, at the same time, it gives you great joy, but it also makes you not live in the moment and enjoy the moment either. Or you're a mark. That's the thing. If you're like, this is so cool, you're a mark. If you act like you're not excited, then you're not grateful. Welcome to wrestling. WrestleMania Sev. Aha. Or aha. Aha.
Just
they took the A out. It was fire marshal said no A at the end.
Well, you sort of, so you didn't soak up the atmosphere then, which is one of my follow-up questions. This is one of the follow-up questions as well. How much of your time got cut?
No time was cut just by the pacing of the match, but I don't know how much time was cut. But I do know this, man. They wouldn't let up on Taz in the heat. Watching back, I don't remember at the moment looking at it going, wow. but they would not even, they pick them up and they drop them. They pick them up and whip them. They pick them up and belly to back suplex them. They pick them up and, you know, they were running Taz around, man. I don't know. You had told the story that there was some friction within that calling of the match, but I didn't witness it. But that in there, like, I don't know if it was a company thing that was based on, I said before, they literally buried Taz in a way that he didn't deserve because he would have drawn money. That reaction at the Garden versus Kurt Angle, and then this happens. No, it should have been that. And I saw that you put Taz in a 6-man tag match at WrestleMania after that debut. I don't know, man. It just doesn't speak to me. And I know that was far removed in wrestling timelines, but you look at that and then where they have him there, he should have had some angle storyline in a singles match to really shine.
Yeah, that was over a year after his debut. I mean, a couple of months after his debut, Taz was beaten. While he was ECW champion, he was invited onto SmackDown to wrestle Triple H, where he was beaten clean, along with Tommy Dreamer, who I don't even know why Tommy Dreamer was there, but he was there. And then by the middle of that year, he was wrestling and losing to Jerry Lawler, and they were done with him. And I don't even know why. Because, I mean, I think it was just a size thing. Or maybe it's just, I mean, doing the show with you, now I always think, well, you know, he must have rubbed one person. Oh, he thinks he's a star, does he? Etc.
It might have just been the reaction. The knives might have came out just from the beat in the beginning, and that Garden crowd was hot, dude. That was goosebumps. That's like one of those reactions that kind of like Slaughter said about Warrior. When the reaction happened and the crowd reacted to the music, he never heard anything like that, and his ears were ringing. That's the feeling I got with the Taz entrance against Kurt Angle at the Garden. And that's something like, you look at that, at the time, you're just kind of like, I want to get the hell out of here. But I look back at it, and I'm just like, if you think I was frustrated, what the hell did Taz feel like?
At the end, Bradshaw gets the pin on the Good Father, and I'm presuming this is just etiquette, but at the end, just as Bradshaw's getting up, he gives Good Father a little tap on the tummy. Is that basically just thank you?
Yeah, they were friends, so yeah, it was probably just like a thank you. It didn't seem like egregious, like after you pin him, you lean into his ear and you whisper and you did the squeeze on the inner leg like some people do. Now, I like that finish, though. Godfather hit that before on Taz during the heat, the Ho Train thing. Then he went for it again, got it, clothesline, 1, 2, 3. So the finish was really solid. The match was really, really rushed. It was jump-started. The Jericho Regal match that opened the show was jump-started too. That was, like you said, no filler. The opening match was technically a blood feud in a way. Well, a pee feud because he peed in his teacup. You know, but basically, like you said, the first match seemed like a main event of another pay-per-view in a way. It was very, very full. This match moved very, very quickly with another jump start, and then just went and then settled in the bell rang. So that was really strange to begin with. And then not long after that, there was some heat on Taz, like early on with that.
Anything else? I mean, how would you rate this match? I don't think we do match ratings or anything like that. I mean, it was perfectly serviceable, I thought.
From storyline, I'd probably give it a 5-star out of 5. I don't do 7s or anything, but from the actual spot on the show and what was needed, every match on this show in this era of WrestleManias delivered for what they were meant to do. The psychology of the card. And I know I throw it a little bit out there because they jumpstart the first match, but that was literally your Intercontinental title match, correct? Between Jericho and Regal?
Yeah, I think so.
Intercontinental title match, workhorse match, technically not a big monster match, so you had a good pacing. And it still was like, this could have been a main event of any Raw, SmackDown, or other pay-per-view with the way the story they had. Like, their story wasn't even considered, I guess, to be the strongest blood feud. Obviously, they had the teacup and the pee, and they had a personal issue. But that was the first match that had a stronger storyline than most of the main events today. So strange.
Just keep in mind that the year after, Jericho and Triple H would main event WrestleMania 18 when the main storyline was Triple H and Stephanie McMahon getting a divorce and fighting over a bulldog. That was the main event the next year, but anyway, I'll leave that. Just one more thing that we didn't mention, the pre-match promo by Bradshaw. I thought it was great. And he just talks about all the fantastic sporting events, you know, that he went to as a kid in the Astrodome and stuff like that. And I'm wondering if that opened people's eyes to Bradshaw as far as just an interview, because, I mean, obviously he's always entertaining with the APA, but that was a really impassioned sort of monologue he gave out.
Yeah, it definitely was it was basically a man talking about the childhood dream, but not in a childlike way. It's like, this is cool, we're here, and the fans felt, we're here right there, and I remember those moments. Maybe not at that stadium, but everybody could relate. Yeah, that was one of the best promos he ever did as a babyface. I mean, obviously, his heel work is a completely different animal as far as quality and heat. I mean, his promo of being at the border and kicking the Mexicans literally in the ass back over. Yeah, I mean, good Lord.
Oh, amazing work.
Amazing
work.
Yeah.
Here's something else. So just mentioned the Astrodome there. And you were also talking about, you know, walking in, seeing the venue, you know, that you've seen on TV, I'm sure, hundreds of times before. This is more of a general thing. We can talk about the Astrodome specifically first, but then bigger stadium shows with roofs and without roofs as well. Do you have to work differently as far as the size of the venue? I mean, comparing the ECW arena, which had a capacity of 1,000, 1,100 people, to the Astrodome with who knows how many, 70,000 or something like that watching. Do you have to do things differently for the size of audience you're working in front of?
I think the first thing is the entrance. You have to take into account, which they stretch out time today with those really long international entrances, especially, or a pay-per-view entrance. So when you have a match time, it's figured in from your entrance. That's the biggest adjustment right there. Also, getting out of there, because there might be, like you said, WrestleMania 17, you might add a short segment, but the next match is up. It's not 5-7 minutes of backstage stuff before the match. You're literally...
It was like Live Aid. Do you know what I mean? It's like band's on, you turn around the stage and then the next one's on. It's just, you're bombarded with it, but it's all good.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of give away your feeling of it. What would you rather have, that or what we have now, where the entrances happen, then we go, or no, an entrance happens, then we go backstage to a completely unrelated promo for Raw, then we have a vignette of somebody, then the next entrance comes out, there might be another pre-tape, then when the person gets in the ring, they go to a commercial break for 3 minutes, then they come back with the match. I prefer what we are seeing with WrestleMania 17. It's like, man, it's over before I knew it. And I want more. Now it's like, please, God, end it. End it already.
You're not a fan of Jey Uso plugging Fanatics for the 18th time or whatever he's doing? Every single week.
I actually didn't remember it, so he didn't do a good enough job plugging it.
No. Fair enough then. Right, so yes, small venues versus big venues. Do you alter your working in any specific way? Not including the entrances, I'm talking the actual moves, or just gesticulations, that kind of thing. Do you have to make things bigger and more exaggerate for, you know, if there's a huge audience around you?
No, because that would be the first temptation as a worker from my era, to go to the 67th row, to go to the 700 section. But this is TV. This is worldwide pay-per-view. So you're always playing to the camera without looking at it, or else Vince will get really, really mad. But you're playing to the camera. There's no way to connect with, in this case, almost 68,000 people. You just have to do what you have to do and look at that camera and let the camera find you. The one thing that threw me off, but they seem to have adjusted it, at least when you're watching it at home, open air stadiums. The acoustics is completely different. Any outdoor show, baseball stadium, parking lot at the Harley Davidson, your acoustics in an arena are so, the energy literally from your bumps, the crowds cheering, booing, rumbling, reactions, oohs, ahs, they bounce off the roof and the walls, and you receive that energy, to use like a new age kind of term. You feed off of that energy. Where in an open air stadium, you might at home, they might have them mic'd up, I think now, I can hear it, kind of like Fox with football. For a time, they pumped up the crowd volume, and then people got used to it. But if you're in the ring, all that reaction and that energy escapes through the top when it's not, sealed off. So open air stadiums can be very disconcerting that it feels more muted in the ring than you would hear at home.
What about a venue like the Astrodome then? I mean, because the dome is so huge, do you still get any reverberation or just the noise?
Yeah, because you have
disappear?
70,000 people in there, 67 and 9 and some change for WrestleMania 17. Yes, because now you're in an echo chamber in a good way for a change. Not the echo chamber we see today, but that Astrodome. And I believe like Lincoln Financial Field had certain things put up to keep the acoustics in there, even though it's an open air stadium. If you see it's a design thing, but the way it's designed also is to really, really keep the acoustics within the stadium for, as much as you can without the roof being on it. But they've addressed that because I think you don't really hear the crowd as much from the field.
Do you get a delay for big venues like that? You do something, you're waiting for the cheer, but it's like 2 seconds later or something that throws you off slightly.
No, it's not like breaking the sound barrier where you hear like a few seconds. No, I don't think so. I don't know if reactions take that long to travel from up in the nosebleed section. But once again, I think maybe too, there is some miking of the crowd. So it's an instantaneous thing that they might have on certain speakers in the stadium. I just noticed that. I don't know. They might sweeten it for people at home, much like they do with SmackDown and Raw now. They really, the boos especially. But for that, I think maybe they just activate the microphone that used to drop down, or there's some microphone that's capturing it. It's that special technology with the chair. Double tap. And then it doesn't
of course,
hurt.
and the boot as well, 3 taps.
Well, you got to shave the sole of the boot to make sure it doesn't hurt.
Of course. And the chairs, of course, as well.
James had to compute that for a second. Like, that's a callback to something.
It's nuts in there, I tell you. I don't know who even came up with that chair shaving thing. Okay, right. So if you take ego out of it completely, as far as, the amount of people who are in the venue and, they're coming to see me or, you're part of a big show and everything, would you prefer to work in front of a bigger crowd or a smaller crowd, or is there basically no difference?
Well, you're hoping a bigger crowd because more money.
No.
Bigger gate, more merch. From a money perspective, more people, more money. Not necessarily, though. Not for me, at least. Smaller venue has just an intimacy to it, but you always want a big crowd. As a talent, as the company, and a full stadium, that could carry the entire year of potential losses, where WrestleMania is the thing that carries the company.
I'm sort of talking more like, fan reaction and stuff like that. Once again, the ECW arena, and there's only 1,000 people there, but they're all rabid, they're all on your case, or, or cheering you, whatever it may be, compared to the reaction of 60,000 or 70,000. I mean, there's got to be, I know there's maybe more instant feedback if there's only 1,000 people in the room, and maybe you notice faces more, maybe you hear things more from individuals in the crowd, anything like that.
Well, I would say this. There's just trying to break it down and remember, there's 2 different types of reactions when you talk about a smaller crowd and those really, really large stadium crowds. There is levels of the reaction. When in a stadium, it kind of comes across as one level. Does that make sense? Like, it's just a sea of noise. Whereas, like you say, you can savor each, like maybe one side's doing something in the arena, the other side, the yay boo thing, or Cena sucks, let's go Cena. But in a stadium, it could just come as one, Cena sucks, let's go Cena. Like it all, there could be a delay, but it seems like it's more of, now if you're talking about your basic people standing on their feet, arms up on a babyface win, man, nothing matches that stadium of like the Goldberg over Hogan at the Georgia Dome, and you see everybody stand up off that spear and the jackknife. Yeah, that's some special stuff. That's a picture that you would frame in your studio or office.
At the beginning when I asked, I mean, is there anything, you make your motions or your actions bigger so, you're working to the nosebleeds, and you said no. Is there anything you specifically don't do in front of a stadium crowd that would just be completely lost? I mean, like I don't know, not going onto the floor or not doing any, once again, close-up magic, anything like that that wouldn't translate either.
Well, from the very beginning, you're looking at the match card or cards in this way, and in theory, at least back then, it was applied really, really aggressively, because if you did, say I went to the outside in the first match, but there's a huge spot between Taker and Triple H on WrestleMania 17. On the outside, right where I'm standing and right where I'm doing my spot, that's going to be forgotten by the time they wrestle. But still, the boys in the office remember it, and now it's already been done. Yeah, that's the psychology of the card of WrestleMania is really adhered to it. It needs to be adhered to on most points, because every match needs that WrestleMania moment, that special part of the pay-per-view. And yeah, you would definitely, and I wouldn't go to the floor in a stadium show anyway, because it's hard enough. Now you cut 3 other sides off of the ring. Even if there's a big, like at the AT&T Stadium, that big screen that they're looking up at, I would prefer if they could be like, I want to see what he's doing in the ring and be more engaged that way than this. You're not looking at you're looking at what I'm doing, but you're not really paying attention. It's a disconnect right there. So I would stay in the ring as much as possible, or keep yourself as visible as possible for what you're doing.
I've got an example for you. So when I went to the first All In Wembley, 2023, I think, and I was quite close. I was 18 rows back from ringside, pretty close for what it was. And at one point, I think it was like the 8-man tornado hardcore thing, whatever they were doing. And at the end, one of them had a bag, and we all thought, oh, it was going to be thumbtacks. And then he pours something onto the ring, and it wasn't thumbtacks, and we couldn't work out what it was. And I don't think many people in the arena could either. And he takes a slam on it, and some people go, oh, but most people are just like, what was that? It was glass. It was like that tempered glass, like from a bus shelter or something like that. And I think they'd done it on TV before leading up to that, but like I hadn't watched it, and I don't think that many people knew what it was. And I was thinking, yeah, that might have worked just fine if you're in like a 500-seat venue. But you're now playing to 70,000 plus, and the glass thing didn't work.
Yes, but also at the same time, you're not going to go through glass in front of 500 people. So that's kind of dumb there. Yeah, it looked like Doritos. It didn't even look like glass in one shot that you sent me, because it matched. It wasn't a different color to stand out, like that. Yeah, that's the point too. Like you're doing that. And what you said too is it should be good for the talent to think about things critically. Do people remember this? Do we really do enough in the previous segments to do this glass spot? And you were just like, well, I think they did it. I don't know. But that means I didn't promote it enough to make that a moment, an all-in moment. But I agree. And it's hard. The stadium shows, even if you stay in the ring, people up top might be like, I got to look at the screen the entire time. I mean, what's your thought on that? You're in a big stadium, and you're literally watching it in the same vein that you would at home, paying a lot less money.
Yeah, I've turned down UFC shows because of the same thing. I was like, had decent seats, but all I did was look at the screen the entire way through. I've done it for wrestling shows. That's why I don't go to them. Aside from the fact that, now they're prohibitively expensive. It's like, I went to a house show last year, had great seats, and, didn't have the screens up or anything. That was absolutely fine. But unless you've got really good seats, all you do is that, or wherever you may be sat looking at the screen. It is a waste of money. And he's like, well, what about the atmosphere? Well, so what? I mean, I've been to shows before. I know what the atmosphere's like. It's not like a football, for us, a football match or something. It's nowhere near the same.
But even
it's
then,
not worth the money.
But even then, I am such a fan, and like obviously we're doing this production here. I am such a fan of really paying attention to the TV or pay-per-view presentation. I love the graphics. I love the touching of the touching. My goodness, my Vince. Which computer am I working on? I love how I look at that, and I can in my mind touch on how did they grade the graphics? How long did it take? The set, the lighting, How do they do that? And then take into account if they're in a cold weather city like they did for WrestleMania 29, right at MetLife Stadium in Jersey.
And Philly last year. That's
It's
freezing
cold.
there.
So they did bring out, but they think of everything. They actually had one of those archivist type things, like the guy in the warehouse. They had to build the heaters to go under the ring. That's so fascinating to me. Like, to me, they have such a bunch of content that they can really make people appreciate the money and effort that goes into WrestleMania.
Just because you mentioned that under the ring, and we'll move on to the next thing in a second. I saw someone's fan cam recently. The apron of the ring, so it wasn't on the camera side. It was on one of the sides, where the camera doesn't shoot it, where the apron curtain had been pulled across a little bit, and you could see a monitor under the ring.
Who was wrong? Who was under? Was that no? Taker wasn't under the ring for that. That was. Are you talking about
No,
WrestleMania
this
40?
was like this year or last year or something.
Really?
They're still doing like monitors under the ring, whether it's for a run-in or whatever it is. But yeah, and then you just see the cameraman who's near us just quickly shut it, because they've given away a secret there. But I thought that was interesting.
Even that WWE is so great. They put monitors under the ring if someone's going to come out from under the ring, or when Taker or Kane used to come through the ring, they would put them on it. Their attention to detail on everything. I think that's what makes AEW so glaringly bad sometimes, is all you got to do is have a little bit of oversight, a little bit of communication, attention to detail. And I think a lot of these problems would be solved like instantly. I can't stop my finger. There we go. Got it.
Okay, so there is one sort of big story that was only really revealed after WrestleMania 17. And this goes to Raven. Somehow nearly ended the show early. What happened?
There's something about Raven when it comes to hardcore matches and the power almost going out during his match, much like the Terry Funk and the ECW Barely Legal. He had nothing to do with that, but this he had something to do with. And this is one of those things I got to give him credit though, this hardcore match. I believe they built that room that they threw Raven through the window, because all the walls were breaking. It looked like they built one or two rooms as props. I got to give WWE production or whoever they hired to do that. They put the effort into it. And of course, you have to frame and block this match out. This part was not part of the way they planned it. And basically what happened was Raven, you said in the notes, Raven was supposed to do a full lap around with Big Show on the golf cart with him. Big Show reached over, kind of choked him like the horror movie where they come up from the back seat and grabbed him. Raven lost control, and of all places, like you could see the cabling, the piled up cabling under the chain link fence. Let's go right for that. There's all this other stuff, and nearly for the second time, something Raven was involved with almost cut off the power and the feed to the audience. It's only WrestleMania. Come on.
I like Raven's excuse was, well, I had to drive like I was being choked. It's like, it's fake. Just don't drive anyway.
I thought he was being choked. I didn't think there was any like about it. Big Show, it's much like this LED light, Matt. You put it on 1%, it's still pretty damn bright. Big Show pretending to choke you is you and I in an octagon trying to kill each other. So let's put it in perspective. Raven probably was just being goozled. He might not have been choked, but Big Show was reaching for him.
So I think Raven's explanation was he saw like a chain link fence and thought the golf cart would like bounce off it and like sort of like veering back onto the course, basically. It didn't.
Well, Raven apparently has grown up very privileged and never hopped on a drive. He's driven cars before. So I've never heard that. That sounds like, I don't know. He wouldn't get it. He's well past the point of getting in trouble for it. Like that'd be me like right afterwards. Like I didn't even know the cables were there. I didn't know this. I'd do anything not to have Big Show mad at me. So I wouldn't say he was trying to choke me, but isn't it? I mean, a chain link fence, like maybe 1,000-pound golf cart with 1,000 pounds of wrestlers. Oh, well, no, but sorry, Paul, you were like 4. Raven was like 250. He still had a lot of weight. I don't think the chain link fence was going to survive. The power cabling didn't, to some point.
Luckily, so the thing was that a production guy went up to Raven afterwards after the show and said, you were within centimeters of the sort of, I don't know if it was like the side of the cart, because what had happened was there was almost like a lip of where the path was, where people were walking around. Then the cabling was running, hugging this lip.
Yeah, they're
down,
cable runners that they're big, like kind of tready yellow things, and you open it up and you put the cabling so people don't trip over the cabling. Correct? Is that what it was?
Yeah, pretty much. So he runs the golf cart off the course almost immediately, and then the wheel goes off. He beaches it, and then, like, I don't know, like it's like the side of the golf cart basically started digging into the cabling to the point that he could have just shorted out the entire building.
And it was every power cable. Those were coiled, like those were, the cables probably came up about maybe almost a foot off the ground. There were so many like really thick power cables, and they were strung all along because they were probably thinking nobody's going to trip over, nothing can happen. It's completely out of the way. And Raymond was like, quick left turn.
Did you talk much to Raven at this point? Did he ever talk about this with you or explain it? Or was this like a big joke in the locker room at the time? Oh, Raven nearly, killed the biggest show of all time.
I don't remember it being like an outward thing where everybody did it. If it was, it would have been an all good fun after the fact, not during it. But I think Raven mentioned it maybe. I mean, I can't go back and say I was talking to him any more or less than I definitely less than ECW, because I had other stuff to do, other things like that. We were involved in totally different angles and storylines. But at the same time, if I saw him or talked to him, it wouldn't be like we were total strangers. I have to guess, not that I remember, but he couldn't resist. He almost cut off the feed to WrestleMania 17. I would be talking about it. We are talking about it, so thank you, Raven.
Badge of honor.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Right then. Just one more thing, actually, what I mentioned. How great would that have been if they'd actually gone around the entire arena in the golf carts? Because I tell you what, right? I mean, this isn't about AEW, but it is now. It's like when they do backstage stuff, that it is really, really dark, and it wasn't that well lit. Whereas WWF, even back these days when they did the hardcore stuff, it was mapped out really, really intricately, it seemed, and it was lit so well, and with multiple cameras in the right place all the time. I bet that would have been absolutely a fantastic visual captured well if they got it, pulled it off.
I don't know if back then, I don't think, or they were very early in there, they didn't have any kind of GoPros or action cams or POV cams, but having it on the cart itself as it's driving and getting, it's kind of like Cash Cab or one of those shows where the GoPros are in there and you can see that close. That was the thing that was missing. The close-up of Raven driving and Big Show coming up, and you know what I mean? That camera angle. You couldn't put a cameraman on the hood, but you could put a couple of action cameras up there to do that. Yeah, it would have been a great thing. I don't know if, do you think it might have been borderline wrestle crap? Like, that's a long lap. That'll take about a minute, if not more.
I would have loved that, because that would have been like in the Crash Holly, most ridiculous stuff in like the soft
in the
play
playground where he went down the slide and everything. Yeah,
amazing. I loved all that.
But see, that had the POV camera angle where the cameraman went down the slide behind Crash. He followed the whole movement. This disconnected because you couldn't get into the golf cart and film this. That's the only little thing.
Because the referee did. The referee just hung on the back with Kane afterwards when Kane caught up with. I say caught up. He could have just walked quicker probably because they were only 50 feet away. But the cameraman could have just hovered on the back.
Okay, a GoPro is what, $300?
Yeah.
Those cameras are a little bit more money. Imagine if the camera went flying and broke, and the power went out, and. Wow.
Well, do you know, I was just thinking
They would have blamed that on me right then because I had so much heat. It was my fault.
I was thinking logistically, because all the cameras are still wired, how much wire you would need to go an entire lap around. If you're going to be on the golf cart.
There was no NDI cameras or anything that worked off a network. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They would have, if anything, WWE, if they mapped it out and if it worked, they would have had enough cabling. They would have done it. You can't have any doubt that they don't think of things production-wise beforehand.
I'm sure Raven's response was, yeah. And that was about it.
Well, I did say before the match, I walked by him. I remember this because he always used to famously say, no matter what he was in, he'd be like, make it a tag. So that's what I did when I walked by.
Okay, then. So we're not going to do. I think for next week's Patreon, we're going to be doing the Gimmick Battle Royal, which is my suggestion, in fairness, because I just love it. But so we're not really doing the reviews of the matches themselves. We're doing more of the behind-the-scenes stuff. And the biggest story from this show, of course, is Stone Cold Steve Austin turning to the dark side. He shakes hands with Vince McMahon in the middle of the ring. Vince McMahon is... I don't know why he had to align with Vince McMahon to just like hand him a chair, but apparently he did. I don't get it. I mean, you could have just done it with a fan in the crowd, I guess. But the point is that Steve Austin and Vince McMahon finally align, and it's the biggest heel turn. Ultimately, one of the biggest disaster creative decisions of all time in all of professional wrestling history, until the invasion a few months later, of course. And then, this... How do you even describe it? I mean, did you have an inkling this was going to happen? Anyone in the backstage? Were you sticking around watching the show?
Well, for this, I did stick around, watch the show because it did have a great energy to it. And I enjoyed watching the matches, even from the back, even with all the other stuff I was dealing with. And what I said earlier about, I just want to get out of here. I found myself watching a lot more of it than usual after we were done because we were pretty early. And usually on TVs and other stuff, we were further along in the card for a while. I'm going to ask you this because I'm looking at it from a worker's perspective. You're a young man, you're a kid watching this pay-per-view. What did you think when it happened? What was your instant reaction?
One, unbelievably newsworthy, seismic in the world of pro wrestling. Two, within, I don't know, maybe it was a longer time, maybe a couple of weeks, I just thought, this isn't what I want to see at all. He starts teaming with Triple H. What I thought, even at the time, even though I probably couldn't convey it, is what a complete betrayal of the Steve Austin character. And I knew it then. I couldn't have maybe, elocuted it like so. But it's what it was. I mean, I think it permanently damaged Steve Austin forever, quite frankly. He was never quite the same after.
Well, I'm going to touch on the Vince McMahon part of it. It seemed like at that time, because also we had Stephanie, Linda, all these other, elements in there, Shane. It felt like the McMahons felt like the only way anybody was going to get over, anybody was going to turn babyface, turn heel, or make any kind of meaningful contribution to this product was they have to latch on to us. We are instant money printers. If you just turn heel, shake our hand at the end, even though you didn't need the chair from me, Vince McMahon, this is what's going to put it over the top. What I felt like that handshake was just a big fizzle when it finally happened because I'm looking at Austin and I'm like, you turned heel in a way, but it wasn't like the John Cena heel turn. It wasn't like the Hulk Hogan heel turn where it was such a sudden shock of what? Like it was almost impactful, where the Austin turn felt like a fizzle. The shaking of the hand as a worker, I'm looking at that going, this is the guy who's drawn the most money for this company in the history of beyond Hogan and still scratch the surface. Like there's not like the jump the shark analogy with Austin. It's like, my God, you got so much to do. And Austin was still combining being a kick-ass, being a badass, being totally serious with just a touch of comedy to make you laugh and make you know he's charismatic and he's having a good time. And the boss versus the employee in 2025 is still the tale as old as time. Everybody hates the obnoxious rich boss that takes advantage of their employees, puts them in unsafe conditions or unsavory conditions or things they won't want to do for money. And everybody usually has to get in line and eat the crap and kiss my ass club, except for this guy. That's almost, how can I say? You can never get old with that. It can never get tired. And it's really an infinite amount of possibilities for the character to develop on that and who they work with and who gets who over at the same time. it just felt like, well, if you just stand next to a McMahon, you're going to be whatever the McMahon wants you to be.
I hated it.
And by the way, I don't know. I hated it too. I don't know what circumstances Steve was going through with the company, what he was trying to do, and what the pitch was. Steve's very protective of his brand and his character. So that's why I was shocked as a worker, because it's like, how does this? And then we went into the invasion angle, and then some of the most entertaining spots with him and Kurt Angle kind of like going back and forth and doing things. But that could have very easily been babyface badass Steve Austin taking a little bit of a turn and just interacting with these different characters, have a little bit more of a comedic type of thing to them. Now, with him being a heel, the one good thing that came out of that was that Kurt Angle babyface run and winning the title from Austin. That was really good.
Yeah, was that
Pittsburgh
triple threat with Rob Van Dam as well?
I'm not sure, but he made Austin tap, but Austin's hand was under the rope, remember?
Ah, yeah.
Now, I think it was a singles match, because that's when the family, Karen Angle, and everybody got in the ring, and Kurt was on the shoulders. It was on the opening of the My Sacrifice music video.
Yeah.
I think that was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for the title. It was not, I don't think it was a three-way dance.
Like, what novel concept having the hometown hero win?
Oh, in WWE especially, I'm surprised Kurt Angle wasn't like put in the hospital that night, never to be seen again.
Medical facility.
I just think Vince hates Oklahoma so much, and then they take it out on JR. That's when it really is apparent the babyface has no hope whatsoever. But I'm taking all that into consideration just because Steve, I mean, he still sold merchandise. He still sold but he was not what he was as a babyface. Like Hogan got elevated. Cena, the jury's still out because he's kind of half pregnant with the heel turn or stuff. But that Austin thing, and especially with how vicious Austin could be, imagine if he did a Cena-level heel turn, or even more so like a Hogan, where he literally turned on the most over babyface in a tag match. That's where I see like a more of an impact.
Going back to Steve Austin's thought process, I know I've listened to interviews where he said this multiple times. It was his idea. And
I didn't know that.
It was entirely his idea. I think he pitched it. I think probably people tried to talk him out of it. Probably Jim Ross did. And the idea is that I think after he returned, because he'd returned only a few months early, like October, I think it was, 2000. So he'd been back with the company after neck surgery and nearly a year out. And dare I say, this is just supposition on my part, is that since he's been gone, The Rock is ascending even more. Then you've got your Triple H, and you've got, your Kurt Angles, and you've got a lot of stars who can carry a main event on their own without Austin. That's been proven. Business actually got better in 2000 without Austin on the roster. But, Austin's the person who laid the foundations to let it all happen, along with McMahon, of course, and others. But I get the feeling that he just thought he was growing stale. And I don't think it's his fault that he was growing stale. I think he was actually given bad creative when he returned, because he feuded with and destroyed Rikishi almost immediately. And then he just he was just one. He wasn't the focal point anymore. He was just one of the focal points with The Rock and Triple H and whoever else I mentioned. And I think it's almost paranoia on his part that he decided, man, I need to refresh my presentation. And he took a big risk that he was pretty sure he could pull off. But once again, I just think that's such a betrayal of the character, and you can never get that back. And he never did. I mean, obviously he was hugely popular when he was the commissioner, when he turned after the invasion, when he did the What thing and stuff like that. But it was never quite the same. And I hated it. I hated it.
But I think we have to give credit to Steve for, even though it is some pride and ego in trying to stay relevant and staying special with these guys coming up and drawing money, to see that you can still stand out. In theory, he did take his ego out of it somewhat and said, I will have people hate me. I want to get heat. I want to sacrifice merchandise money and other types of things that even though it was coming around the corner of even heels got action figures and video games and stuff like that, you still take a little bit of a hit that people go, Well, I used to really like you. Now you're with the McMahon guy and all the history with Vince. This is why I was saying I was scared when I mentioned it and you got scared. Are they going to turn Jimmy Uso against Jay at WrestleMania?
Oh, I hope not.
No, but listen.
They've already done it. It's terrible.
But why would Austin align himself with the guy that made his life a living hell for years and didn't want to do anything for him, or any of that stuff? He tried to hinder every bit of his legacy in storyline, and they never explained fully, at least that I can remember, why did he do it? Did we ever get a clear why?
He probably gave an answer, and it was probably unsatisfactory.
Like the week after, but never revisit that. Like, this is why I'm here and why I did what I did.
Well, he aligned with Triple H straight away afterwards, and the month before they did that, 3 stages of hell. One was a cage match, one was a hardcore match, one was a singles match kind of thing. And that made no sense. And it was just one of those. And I remember the next month, I think it's Backlash, and the main event was The Undertaker and Kane versus Austin and Triple H. And I just remember, Kane was my guy. Kane was my favourite. I hated that match as well. And I just thought, none of this is right. And then, it continued on to King of the Ring, and then Austin was injured by Booker T, in fact. I think by Booker T, unless Austin just de-interacted. I don't know whose fault it was, basically. But, he was injured for a month. And it's not to say that Steve Austin isn't a wonderful performer either way. It's just, I think that as much as the Invasion, by the end of 2001, they lost a third of their television viewership in less than 12 months. And that's got to be one of the biggest reasons.
Well, it could be that, or the fact that WCW got bought and everything fizzled out immediately and wasn't what people were dreaming for decades. That supercard mentality. I think that's really the reason it happened. But, also the Invasion, that explains it. I didn't know Steve was hurt. I'm assuming those backstage segments with Vince, Kurt Angle, Deborah, that was all due to injury. But then again, I think it put them a little bit back on track to at least have fans be entertained and like Steve again. You couldn't really boo him after all that.
One more point, then we'll move on to the news, is with Steve. When he came back in October 2000 or around about that time, I remember I think his music had changed by that point. He had that weird remix, which I never got on with. The Disturbed remix. And he dressed differently as well. I know it's only these tiny things, but you know what? To a kid or even to an adult, you notice these things and you think it's not quite the same. And then he was wearing the camo hats and the camo jackets as well, which I know he wore to a point in '98 as well, but he changed his presentation a bit. And I'm just wondering if he was just going through different ideas of how to refresh himself, and then it sort of culminated in the heel turn, which ultimately didn't work.
Well, I'm just going to end this segment by saying I give Steve credit for always trying. That's the part of wrestling that you need to experiment. You need to, even at his level, where it's like the formula works, this didn't quite work, but you got to give him credit for always wanting to evolve, always wanting to try, and always wanting to do different things. In other words, that camo jacket, the camo hat, could have been a new item on WWE Shop and just trying to promote it.
Yeah. Even his merch wasn't as good, though, when it came back. I mean, nothing could ever beat the original Austin 316. I mean, when you've just got a runaway hit. I know they can't keep going back to it, but...
Steve has input, but the creative was really bad on the turn. And then you're talking about merchandise. He might have some input on that, but maybe they hired different designers and they would have had a crossover and they needed to catch up to what the brand wanted. There could be all these outside factors outside of the in-ring stuff that really do hurt or help the presentation.
So that was the WrestleMania 17 portion. We're going to do a bit of news now and a couple of different things. This is my favourite. Charlotte Flair versus Tiffany Stratton. You watched this on Friday with SmackDown because you review with Vince Russo, Raw and SmackDown. But also I made you watch it again just before we started. I've written a ton of notes of what happens here, but a bit of preamble. A couple of weeks earlier, Charlotte and Tiffany had done almost like, the old WWF Superstar style head-to-heads where, basically they're in the same rooms next door to each other, but they're on screens, like via satellite kind of thing. And Charlotte basically ruined it. Dutch said, that was probably live, but I wouldn't have even aired it. It was that bad. Where Charlotte Flair basically seemed to go off script, talk over Tiffany all the time, and Tiffany, being obviously the younger, less experienced, was trying to stay on track, and it didn't benefit her. It didn't really benefit anyone. And then the brain trust at WWE decided, well, if that didn't work well, how about if we get them both in the ring together live on SmackDown? That can't go wrong. And then it went really wrong. So, Stevie, what happened? What went wrong?
Whoever booked this segment, that's what went wrong. Fire that person who thought, like you said, unless it's a rib. I don't know. I think they're throwing these girls out there to kind of fail in different ways leading up to that. Now, you've said you're interested in seeing this match after this promo. A lot of people have said that, and they've all said it for the exact wrong reasons of why they want to watch the match, because the split screen UFC style ESPN presentation thing was a cluster, was awful, and this somehow topped it to the point where this is wrestle crap. This is really, really bad. I knew from the end, first of all, Charlotte's face before Tiffany Stratton's music even hit. I'm like, this isn't going to be good. Charlotte has a way, this is what I'm saying during the whole segment, I'll repeat this. Charlotte has a way of trying to come off as if she's not selling something or not reacting or something's not affecting her. But her face says it's affecting her 10 times worse than anyone else. Like she's selling by not selling. I don't know what it is. The smile, the 1,000-yard stare off to the whatever direction, and just the smirk of whatever. And then just the cadence of talking, and just she smiles nonstop no matter. Her face did not change. Insert your joke right there. But I'm saying her facial expression did not change one bit. The smile, the smirk, the no sell, and then burying her and saying she's a charity case, all the wrong things to going into a match of burying your opponent. And what the office might see, I'm going to get to Tiffany in a second, what the office might see if they have somewhat of a lost confidence in Charlotte Flair, which it seems like they do a little bit. They're going to put over Tiffany Stratton. So now you just buried a girl, called her a charity case, called her an imitator of you, a copycat, a doppelganger, an imitator, whatever she called her. Well, that carbon copy, that lesser whatever version of yourself just beat you clean. So what are you now? And Tiffany Stratton. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't see it that way. I think they're going to go forward with the plan to just continually give Charlotte world title runs so she eventually, overshadows her father, Ric Flair, to 17 or whatever the made up, 16 plus, whatever the made up number is, world title wins, because that has been a story that's boiled for 10 years now.
I'm sorry. She has the amount of heat that Roman Reigns had at that Royal Rumble where him and Rock were standing in the ring and they were shoving that dude down everybody's throat. There's got to be a part of Charlotte inside her that can get over in the same way Roman Reigns did when you finally let him be himself. This feels too manufactured on both sides, too manufactured. You know what'd be cool? We could put them in there. They're two of the similar, and they dress exactly alike for this segment. Now, if there's psychology or a metaphor, clue me in on it. Clue me in on she's trying to get in her head, or she saw her dress this, so she went out and bought that outfit and ran back and changed. Give me something, right? It was just two blondes, two same exact outfits, two of the same type of promos, where Charlotte was bad in one way. Tiffany was bad because her inexperience, her nervousness, especially pacing back and forth, the hair, talking and waiting for people to react. And I'm the WWE Women's World, screaming out that you're not looking at the person that you hate. They turned their backs on each other so much. I was like, somebody, like, hey, Bad News Barrett, jump both of them, beat them up. Somebody jump somebody, because you're turning. His face was, zoom in on his face. If Chris can put that up there, just a little clip or a screenshot, he's looking at it like, I think he looked at his watch once. Like, oh my God, like, when's this thing going to end?
Do you know, he lunged in twice during that interview.
To try to save it, I think, right?
Yeah, no, to stop them from hitting each other, I think. Like, right at the end, we'll go through the entire thing.
Oh, don't even get to the end. When we get to the end, I got a tangent for that. Go ahead, though. I'm sorry.
She got no self-awareness, because I keep sort of saying the same with Charlotte Flair is the same as Batista back in 2014. They were both gone too long, then they both get entered into the Royal Rumble, win. Nobody really had any interest in seeing them return, really. There wasn't that big clamour for them. You know, no one particularly missed them. I mean, maybe Batista, you know, when he was a heel and everything, because he was great in that last year. But that being said, no one was clamouring for this match. And I think at some point, I don't know, maybe Charlotte just thinks, hey, how dare you? I've put in, 10 years more worth of service in the WWE. You should love me. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, you know what would have made her a baby? Two things would have made her a baby face. The one thing didn't, and then the second thing, when she showed up in her position, made it even worse. Those vignettes on the yacht, and I'm living a good life, when people are struggling and trying to make make any kind of dollars they can, was tone deaf. If they legitimately showed her rehabbing the injury and saying this is how she gets herself over as a babyface. I'm Charlotte Flair. I've been gone for a while. I realize the women's division is stronger than ever. I want to earn my place back into WrestleMania by starting at the bottom. That's it. And Tiffany Stratton could have been the heel by saying, that's right, you have to work your way from the bottom up to me at WrestleMania. And she could have a part to play in every match and every angle, trying to stop Charlotte from getting to the title picture. But she doesn't. You see how simple that is to flip it around? Mm-hmm. But the vignettes, that's where people went, who does this girl think she is? Better than me? That's the thing. Instead of saying, look at me be a legitimate athlete, rehabbing a knee injury, working hard, and letting you know I'm going to re-earn everything I had in the past. I know I'm at the bottom. That way you exceed expectations. What they did was, they literally did exactly what they did. There's a big thing back and forth about the Nepo baby thing, which I can't believe they said it right. I stumbled over it just thinking about it. She admitted to being the best case of nepotism. So if you think you're a babyface after all that, and maybe, just speculation, maybe Ric Flair's goodwill to the fans with all his extracurricular garbage has finally worn thin on the fans, and they're taking it out on her. Because think about it. They booed when she mentioned Ric Flair. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Nepo Baby was scripted. I think when Charlotte decided to go, Nepo Queen, I'm the best Nepo Baby, was definitely not scripted. But we're still getting ahead of ourselves.
Did you mute the volume when she did it in that tone? It was like the Melina scream.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, Charlotte's trying to get on the crowd's good side. They boo her. She said, that is power. This is power. Which meant absolutely nothing. I don't know why she even said that.
People power, everybody.
Oh, yeah,
People
yeah,
power.
It must be Laurinaitis. You see, if she wanted to be more popular, she needs to attach herself with John Laurinaitis. And then Tiffany says, when Charlotte is being booed, that she will never win over the fans, and then she says, this is power. So she's immediately mocking her straight away there, which I've got a feeling wasn't in the script. Charlotte tries to win, once again, wins over the fans, but they boo her so loudly, it seems like it goes on for days, this booing.
Do you think it was piped in? It sounded oddly
That's
like
a
Dominic's
good point.
boos. Dominic's boos are gone. These boos are here now.
That's a good point. It did seem to ratchet up like a bit, like almost someone turning a dial a bit like
it
that.
Didn't feel organic. It felt like you can't sustain boos for this long.
She must have been booed that loudly though, because she wouldn't have just said.
But they turned it up, or they had some sweetening. That's what that's just my thought, because it sounded artificially long. That maybe they started booing, but they kept the boo soundtrack going way too long.
Tiffany says, well, basically, Charlotte says after a minute and a half or whatever this is, you have the last word, and just stops. gives up. Tiffany then says at the same age, Charlotte was drinking alone in her dad's basement, failing to be a volleyball player, I think she says, but I think she meant gymnast. WWE, Tiffany's WWE World Champion. And then she tries to say that Charlotte isn't the queen of shit, but then Charlotte talks over the go-home line and starts mocking Tiffany's voice. And it's like, no one can tell me that was in the script. No one can tell me that was format. Because no one cheered it either. She completely killed the go-home line.
Do you think that's somewhat purpose? I mean,
entirely.
The queen line was obviously a line that was in there. Maybe it would have slipped through, bleeped out, whatever, but it added a little bit of grittiness and reality to the angle. Do you think, of all words to talk over, all insults, she literally, and she started saying, Queen, Queen, not with the Johnny, Queen, hey, get over here. Hey, you're my buddy. Steve, you got a job for life. Feels like this girl's got a job for life for real.
Yeah, I think so. So Charlotte then starts doing, me, I can't hear you because of your silly loud voice, high voice, whatever.
Dude, this was off the rail. If you have a thing that's
TV.
off, I'm sorry I keep cutting you off, but the minute they started doing it, and she knew she was throwing Tiffany with her inexperience and nervousness off with this, because I could see the face and grabbing the hair and pacing and waiting. Oh my God, it was how she. Was there any heat on Charlotte after this at all? Or it's just like,
well, you know how reports go. It depends if you believe them or not. But apparently more people were blaming Charlotte than Tiffany for this going off the rails. Because one, I mean, she's way more experienced. She should know. And she does know, apparently. But once again, right, so here's the big thing. Once again, with the nervousness, I noticed that Tiffany's voice cracks when she's about to deliver what is, I suspect... Because apparently they were meant to mention the marriage... Right, but really only hint at it as far as Charlotte, or Ashley Flair anyway, went onto some daytime talk show to talk about her marriage failing. And then Tiffany's voice cracked when she says it, and she basically says, you're 0-3 in marriages, can I add a woo? And then she drops the mic and then leaves. And then Charlotte says, Kaiser's in my DMs. And then that's the end of the segment. I think Joe Tessitore says, I can't remember what he says, but it's just like, it's like the most... Like the worst line ever, just to hit home like this was a complete disaster of it. But yeah.
Everybody, WrestleMania 41 coming to you live in 3 weeks, something like that. We're trying to. Now here's the ending too. What are we doing here? The babyface literally ran from the heel, powdered, and put the belt up, and the Kaiser in the DMs. No casual fan, and I didn't even know. Did you know that Kaiser and Tiffany Stratton are together? I didn't even know that.
I did, and I forgot. So I still didn't pick up on it immediately.
They talked over each other, the inflection, the tone. Charlotte, this is what I'm saying. Charlotte is acting completely disinterested in this entire angle leading into WrestleMania, while also letting everything get to her at the same time. Does that make sense?
Well, no, it doesn't, but that's what's happening.
That's what she's doing. She's acting like she's too good for this match and too good for WrestleMania, and at the same time, acting like she's trying to get over as a babyface to the fans when she's doing this promo. And they're trying to zing each other and get the old, your mom is so fat there. You know what I mean? That's what they're trying to do. Instead of the title means nothing. Like, I didn't even, at the end of this promo, do you even think about a world championship? You're like, these guys put them in a street fight or whatever, a cage match. I don't know. Maybe, do you think it's even going to get to the point? This is something that would be crazy, and I don't think it's going to happen. Do you think this is going to go so far off the rails and these girls legitimately cannot get it together that they may cancel the match?
Oh, the old Nathan Jones. Do you know what I mean by that?
With the Taker match at WrestleMania 19.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's found beaten up 10 seconds before bell time kind of thing. Yeah. Maybe.
Well, that's what happened at the WrestleMania 19 match. And then he came out to help Taker at the end, right?
Yeah, he did. He did 2 boots, like 2 leg kicks, and he nearly fell over on a big boot. So they did the right thing.
So, I mean, is this a case where they're looking at it going, now, if it's a work and they're trying to display some kind of animosity on TV, they're doing kind of a terrible job to make you want to see the match for any other reason but to see what kind of train wreck it's going to be. They're incredible athletes. Like you said, they might pull out an absolutely outstanding match, but the storyline attached to it is really, really off-putting.
Yeah, it could go like the Batista Booker T thing where they allegedly had a fight at like a photo shoot a couple of weeks beforehand to promote SummerSlam or a month beforehand, and then they went out and had a decent match.
I mean, working together, this is where Batista and Booker T can get in that fight. It's been noted they did get into a fight, and then take that in there and work together. There's still a code amongst wrestlers to some degree, at least in my era, which Booker T and Batista are a part of that era, where you don't do that. If you take advantage and you punch somebody in the face or you want to get into a real fight in the ring at WrestleMania, by the way, if you do that, no matter who you are, Vince is going to get rid of you. You're out of a job and you're potentially blacklisted for a very, very long time. That's an era where that still counts. If you go into business for yourself, like the Adam Page thing with CM Punk, if that happened on Vince's show, Adam Page would be fired.
Speaking of finishes to pay-per-views, we have to go on to AEW Dynasty that was on this past weekend. And it's the second pay-per-view in a row where I think fans really enjoyed the undercard, but it's almost turning into a WCW thing where it's got a great undercard and then the main event just isn't really delivering for one reason or another. Last month it was because after all the hardcore matches and, almost exhausting quote-unquote 5-star matches and stuff like that where they really got the crowd involved, then they had a straight match with Jon Moxley and Adam Copeland and it just didn't really work out. And then this month it's Swerve Strickland versus Jon Moxley for the AEW World title, and it looked like Swerve was about to win with a double stomp, and then once again there was a very unsatisfying conclusion in the eyes of many fans who purchased the pay-per-view. So, over to you, Stevie.
Thank you, James. Well, I want to let everybody know we have a format for this type of stuff. This segment here, and also the other AEW segment that we're going to talk about, I have not watched these. This is going to be a live reaction. I don't know who won. I don't know what happened. You kind of give it away, but I don't know how it happened. Let's take a look. So double stomp here.
Mm-hmm.
What's he selling? What's the emotion with Swerve right here?
Oh, I think it's all been weapons and all that kind of thing on the way up, and he's seconds away from winning the title, I guess.
Oh, so he's kind of like, oh my God, I'm about to win the title face?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, I'm just checking. Swerve's really, really impressive, by the way. Is he selling his knee from previous stuff, or did he really get hurt?
No, he's selling.
That's good. That's a great sell. Crawling
Referee's
over and
down,
just
by the way, I think.
There's nothing wrong. He's still grabbing the knee. This is such a little thing. I give him credit, though. Oh, lights out? All right, now I'm going to say this about Swerve's reaction. It's like, please don't, please don't, please don't, instead of get your hands off me, you sons of bitches, you know what I mean? Or some, like anger, like, get off. You see, it's a little, the emotion's a little bit more stop, no, you know what I mean? Instead of like,
then BT Trigger, you need to know that the Young Bucks have been gone for 6 months at this point, so this is their surprise return.
It's surprising to me because I didn't know they were gone. So
once again, it's almost like the Charlotte thing. No one was particularly clamoring for the Young Bucks to return, but here they are. So that's really it. That's really all you need to see. So from that, Jon Moxley crawls over, gets the pin, retains the title. Now, the reason why some people are saying this is maybe the worst AEW pay-per-view finish ever, is sort of for two reasons, or maybe even more reasons. One is people, AEW fans especially, are pretty darn sick of the Death Riders. They've never really hit the mark. Jon Moxley's been the champion for, 7-8 months now, and it's not doing it for most people, quite frankly. Secondly, I think people want Swerve to win. Of course, that's by the by, really. Thirdly, the Young Bucks are in storyline as well as in real life AEW executive vice presidents. So therefore, they're very closely aligned to Tony Khan, of course, even though they did that weird tombstone where his head never even touched the mat even close. But you know what I mean. They're AEW for life. They're AEW lifers, basically. Why would they then be aligning, or at least helping Jon Moxley retain, where Jon Moxley and the Death Riders are fully intent, so is their mission statement, even though we don't know how they've even attempted to try and do this, is take over AEW from within. There is the biggest disconnect, there is the biggest difference of interests of these characters' motives for them to be working together at all. And
well, I would say you just made the case for why the Death Riders have a connection to take apart AEW from within. The Young Bucks are from within. So we may look at it like, well, what's this have to do with anything? You could have heel authority figures now in the Young Bucks, where the Death Riders are favored and given all the favors. Of course, the gimmick, nobody likes the gimmick for some reason. They just think it's whatever. But this here could explain, because we thought it was going to be Shane McMahon having part ownership and the Death Riders would be attached to him. I think they already knew it was going to be the Young Bucks. That's my interpretation from that past promo.
With that being said, it does open up more possibilities, but it just seems, I don't know, it just seems that AEW fans just aren't having much patience with this, or I think it's just so much of the same and nothing's ever changing. And as I say, it's been well over half a year, and Jon Moxley and the Death Riders' motives, I mean, in the initial few weeks, they were saying, we want to do this, we want to do that, we're taking over kind of thing. BWO style almost. But there's no actual taking over to be done. It sort of died there, and now they're just bad guys who help each other win. And so there's not really any clear motive for what they're doing either at this point, which is why it's just more of the same.
Do you think because they wrestle in the other places that they actually think they're taking over like CZW or Game Changer because they're doing all the spikes and all? I think they think they're in a different promotion.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to kill off sponsorship. That's their way of taking over.
That'd be a good way. Yeah, we're going to make the network angry, and there won't be any TV. Well, you'll be out of a job too, Moxley. Oh,
you can buy it cheap. Buy AEW cheap.
I don't know. Hey, I'd still stand by what the Ring of Honor. It's not $40 million, but it was something ridiculous. So
the next thing is after the show is over, Swerve Strickland. I'll give you the abridged version of this. Grabs the microphone. I guess it doesn't really thank people for being there. Instead of talking about the Young Bucks costing him the AEW World Title or Jon Moxley or the Death Riders or whatever, he starts talking about representation, and then he closes it with, "Oh, one last thing, simply for my amusement, F Booker T." And we won't bother going into the feud between the two because it's sort of immaterial at this point. Why would Swerve do that?
I have no idea. This seems to be very much not an AEW thing, but generally this era of wrestling. He probably had an incredible match. I love this selling a leg. He's a great performer, but you stick to talking about the performance, about the match, about the show. If you're the last thing, you thank everybody for coming out. Stick with me. I am going to win the AEW World Title if I got to go through the Young Bucks, the Death Riders, or anybody else. I'll do it for each and every one of you. Like a feel-good go-home speech for the fans. Or, this is why I love AEW. I get to be in the ring here and interact with you fans. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go out there now and sign autographs for everybody because I love the AEW fans and I love AEW. I ain't cheesy, but to turn around and say, hey, thanks for spending 3 hours or however long watching this and spending money without saying it, actually. You never said it, but you're kind of saying, I'm in the ring, blah, blah, blah. By the way, F this guy that has nothing to do with this company. Bye. What? And that's no by means a personal, speaking of personal, that's not a personal thing on Swerve, but it is something that Swerve had the false positive to say, if I say this personal thing that has nothing to do with anything with wrestling in general, much less the company or the show, you know what would be cool if I went out there and said F Booker T? That'll pop somebody. That'll get Booker T, who doesn't work for the company and will never have an angle, will never pay off me saying F Booker T in any way possible on this show. But I'm going to say it anyway. It's that's your thought, right? This has nothing to do to further business, and it has nothing to do to make Swerve any more than he is already to recover from the loss.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure people there are Booker T fans as well. And once again, we're not getting into the reasons why they're arguing with each other, because once again, it's immaterial to the point that why. I mean, it was after the pay-per-view went off, but I mean, you'll know this, of course, Stevie, is that, it's traditional after the cameras stop rolling and then people, whoever's in the main event, will talk to the audience and thank them for coming out and that kind of thing. But it just seems like such a wasted opportunity. Or even worse, it might just cost Swerve fans for no particular reason. I'm wondering, is this a CM Punk holdover, where all of a sudden, Punk returned after the fracas and then AEW Collision, and then he would do post-show promos every week, basically referencing Adam Page and the Young Bucks or whatever, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah, but all those guys were in the company. You had a potential to see something come out of that, right? Mm-hmm. This is completely different. And dare I say it, even though, like, obviously saying that, even in the joking sense, could be interpreted by Booker T as disrespectful. He has a lot of pride, and you don't want to disrespect a guy like that. But it does more for Booker T to be in the spotlight than Swerve. Because Booker has more of a platform, I think. Does he still have the radio show or the podcast that he talks, the Hall of Fame one? Or
yeah, but also he still appears on WWE NXT as a commentator. He appears on NXT.
He can get his digs in each and every week. And if he doesn't, then it looks like Swerve is punching up. So Booker wins either way, the way he handles this. So I don't get it. I would just tell Swerve, man, talk about the business, talk about your gimmick, talk about your angle, talk about the company, and most importantly, put the fans over. Don't alienate potential people that are Booker T fans and Swerve fans, but just might like Booker T a little bit better, and now they're not your fan and they won't invest their time, money, and energy into supporting you now.
Now, next on, this isn't quite what went right, but this is actually going to be a comparison. I've made a compilation video, two compilation videos, gleaned from various YouTube videos, and made just for you, Stevie, and everybody at home. We're finally going to be comparing who has the best spear in wrestling history. Is it Bron Brekker? We're not including Rhino, by the way, because that was a gore. But it was a gore if he got the pin. It was a spear if they kicked out, which is what Rhino was saying. Bron Brekker versus Goldberg. Who has the best spear in wrestling history? And it's over to you, Stevie, to decide. So, Stevie, who is it?
All right, so here we go. He could have hit his head. Oh my God. Not Carly. Look at that. That's a Goldberg spear. He locked out, man, to be able to flip over. Let's do that in slow-mo. I mean, he's jumping. He's in the air before it even gets on camera that Carlito's there. Oh, that is, even the shoulder. Like, look at how close. It's not totally close. It's a car. I mean, right there, just that spear alone is better than any Goldberg spear or any spear I've ever seen. This is, what did they label it again?
That is the greatest spear of all time.
I believe it's the greatest spear of all time. I'm taking a chance right now. The second camera angle, really, I have to put WWE over. How they do it. We watched the Bret Austin match. We watched the WrestleMania 12 match, which preceded, obviously, the Bret Austin match. Just changing the look in that year right there. And then always changing the look of the set, the look of the Titantron. But now it's like an 8K screen that they debuted that year at MetLife for WrestleMania. The big 8K screen. Or what is it? It was more than that. It was like 32K or something ridiculous how big that screen was. Their production, this camera right here to follow the action down the entryway, it's just incredible. It looks like he just bounces off Carlito, and it looks like Carlito kind of, I don't know if he spears him or whatever, but Carlito just kind of hits him like he hits that. It's just so crazy how good this is, this camera.
The only thing that bugs me about the drone footage is it's not quite as crisp as, obviously, you know, the cameras on the floor. But I'm sure technology is improving constantly. I am sure that will improve soon. But I think they probably have to use like a really small drone inside. Because if nothing else, drones are really noisy.
Well, why didn't they set up like one of these cameras just on top of the screen to have that camera angle the same quality? It is degradation in quality, but man, it sort of has the Bret Austin gritty look too. It sort of like makes me think about that kind of stuff. This was incredible. I can't say enough good things about. We got to look at Goldberg, but I know Goldberg's probably insulted that they said his spear is the greatest spear ever. Am I guessing right?
Oh, I don't know what Goldberg's opinion is of that at all.
All right, now we're here to go. Even though Bron Brekker has only been in the company for a very short time, this is the OG spear. This is basically, maybe this one on I Show Speed was the reason they changed it, because this is probably the most shoot spear I've ever seen as far as anything. They killed this guy. Let's see. Ah! That's like when Goldberg did it. I didn't even look. That's kind of like the Goldberg spear we talked about. Oh my goodness. Oh! Oh! What do you say? Welcome to WWE. Now Bron almost DDT'd himself there too. That's part of the reason why I think they changed it. Look. That's a very dangerous proposition right there, to plant your own head into that. So I Show Speed saw some speed right there. It was too late.
Yeah, they say 23 miles an hour off the ropes, Bron Brekker can run.
Well, you know what? If I see Bron Brekker running at me at 23 miles an hour, I'm going to be running away at 24 miles per hour. So try and catch me. Oh, they went back to the reaction with McAfee and Michael Cole. I love.
They're doing the UFC thing now. Yeah,
that originated Marvin All. Shout out to him. Nobody will ever be as good as him. I wonder why he hasn't come back in this era, where it's a lot more kind of understanding to his, mental health and everything. Bring that guy back. He was awesome. That's a Howard Finkel level of big fight feel, but on commentary. You looking it up?
He's actually doing commentary for Scott D'Amore, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling at the moment.
Good for him. Good for him. But he deserves to be on the main stage. All right, here we go. He hit his head 100%. Did you see that? Look at, there it is. You want that to be the thumbnail? Tuck your chin, kid, right? Can't do it. I think that was the, you know what would be cool? Oh, you really know what would be cool? This would be cool.
Yeah, no one was talking I Showed Speed out of that. He might have even come up with it himself. So, if I just turn around, it's like, oh, that'd be great.
The thing I hated about this was, first of all, the way he went into the Rumble with Hunter go, you got to get out there. You got to get out, like the whole, social media thing. And then when he came back, they all congratulated him and clapped. Here we go.
So the rest of these are just some of the best.
It though.
Oh, no.
What's that?
Some of these are just some of the best over the past year, so you should get an idea of how the spear has changed since he's been on the main roster.
Well, Jaden McDonough for sure. Is that Jaden McDonough for sure has to, this kid has to get well again. He's been off for a while. We know why. It's just hopefully he get well soon. I have no doubt that Jaden McDonough made this spear look incredible before I even watch it. Yep. Good job. Nathan Frazier. Good job there. That was when he was going over on people right in the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. The Kaiser one. Yeah. See, that's the camera angle, dude. This is what makes him special. Production makes it look special. This is his camera angle. They did it with Bron a couple times, but I think it's nice job, man. That's a scary one. You know why?
Mm-hmm.
Look at the feet. You can catch your toes on that mat.
Yeah.
And blow out both your knees. Sammy's very lucky because slow-mo, look at that. Look at the right leg and the foot. Could have very easily blown both your knees out. Oh, he just flying headbutted him. I love Jay's look. Just, whoa, wait a minute. Too late. Bron Brekker needs to be careful that he doesn't hurt himself. I know Goldberg's probably given himself multiple concussions on the warm-up with the soda machine as well as the spear, but the kid needs to be careful. Ooh, what was that? Did he slide? Did he lose his footing? Yeah, I think he went to jump and lost his footing. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't able to dive.
Yeah, because he's coming around the corner at the same time as well, so it does sort of increase slightly the potential for slipping.
That's the slip.
That
See, his feet are in that direction. I think his sneakers kind of. You see what I mean? Although he got 2 steps after that, good for him.
Right, I got to Goldberg's then.
I've taken Goldberg's. And it's already better than his. Is it more real? The earlier versions, yeah, but then he cleaned up. So let's look at Goldberg.
Yeah, the WCW ones are well better. And I tell you what, every single one on Glacier is amazing. I only put one in.
Ooh, that's a neck injury. That's the Tommy Young neck injury, right? Look at that.
What happened with Tommy Young?
Supposedly he had jumped or took a bump and his neck hit the rope. And it's that tight cabling of WCW or NWA back in the day. And I think he got a neck injury and never, that's me speculating. I've run into him since he refed. He's always been very kind. But I believe it was an injury based on his neck hitting the rope. That's a story I heard. And that's why I've always been really careful about not being too close to the ropes. Because look at this. That's right on the back of the neck. Oh, the La Parka one was awesome. Okay, I'm leaning more towards. Oh, Dina, was that Dean or Chavo?
I think it's Chavo, I think.
I think it's Chavo too because facial hair here. I'm starting to lean back based on these spears. Did you throw me in here for some reason? I'm sensing it.
Yes, I did, yeah.
Haku.
See, I'm surprised that Meng's such a great one.
Oh!
Now, I think there's a story. You know when you were saying DDTs himself? I think Goldberg actually does on this one, gives himself a aneurysm, it looks like, quite frankly, but I think he rattles his own head, definitely. And he also, because Goldberg would do this as well, and I think a lot of other people who do spears do this as well, is when they miss a spear into the corner and then, they hit the head on the middle turnbuckle. But Goldberg would, I'm sure this won't come as a surprise to you, knock himself out clean out occasionally doing that.
He did that at the Saudi Arabia match with Undertaker where he literally threw his head into the post. Remember that? But he's already knocked out. The soda machine won every single night.
Yeah. I think it was on this pay-per-view maybe he knocked himself out.
Yeah, he definitely looked like he was out. He bounced. Literally, it looked like a DDT. He bounced and bounced to the side. Oh, yeah, he's not getting up. He didn't get up and do his thing. You know what I mean? He just, not the thing. He did his thing, not the thing. I'd love to see Goldberg try to do the thing with Ricochet or Will Ospreay.
Yeah, he could do backflips back in the day. He'd have a chance. This is great.
Oh! Yeah, well, Canyon's just another level. He twisted him, too, when he did it. Oh! I remember Booker, he had a leapfrog thing. Good sell by... Oh, Alan Funk.
It was a Kiwi at the time, I think.
Yes. Oh, whoever this guy is.
There's those pink trunks that got us demonetized for that video, by the way.
Well, cut that out. Canyon always used to land on his head. The Brock one out of the multiple. That was a safe one. His head was tucked in, but not past the arm. So good job, Goldberg. Very good.
It must be good to do it on someone like Brock as well.
Oh, what's that?
It must be good to do a spear on Brock as well, because you know you can just do it as hard as you can and he'll be fine.
He's got the resistance and the low center of gravity and the base to be able to take it. So, okay. So am I going to make
we've got to watch the Christian one again. Oh, I want to watch the Christian one, because that might be, like, if it's not off the ropes or turning around, I mean, he is turning around, but Christian takes it so well.
Right on the back of his head, too.
Yeah, he just spine busters himself, pretty much.
But you got to think you can't really tuck totally. Yeah, that's probably the best one he's ever done. But I dare say, looking at the Kiwi one, looking at the Alan Funk, that was the best one where with Sammy, he got his feet caught, but Alan Funk literally got speared in the air and took the back bump there. Mine wasn't the best one, but I learned my lesson from the previous spear to not have this happen. My head. So I tucked in and did more of a Brock thing where I resisted and let him kind of pick me up and throw me down, you know? Still look good, but now you want me to make a decision.
I do want you to make a decision. For some reason, I feel a diplomatic answer coming.
Well, we get less diplomatic with each passing episode, according to people that watch.
Yeah.
I would say Bron Brekker.
Mm.
You know why?
Just based on the last couple, well, the iShow Speed and the Carlito one, or as a body of spears, I guess.
No, based on the Carlito one and based on the change in the type of spear, the air he gets, and it actually somehow looks more devastating. He built the foundation of doing the Goldberg spear. Now he changed it a little bit to fly in the air, and it's just impressive. So that you combine the run with flight, and then literally his body's a missile. He takes a bump off to the side, like the one on Carlito. So he could do both styles, as a matter of fact. There might be a time where he needs to basically just run somebody over. So in a way, he has two different types of spears where you can get a false finish potentially off the floating spear. Then he's going to plant you for the finish. So he's kind of protecting his finish with two different spears. Goldberg can only do it one way, and the way Goldberg does it is probably why that dude, it's a miracle he doesn't have this stuff going on with his neck, his head, CTE, whatever it might be. Goldberg, unfortunately, I have to say it right now, Goldberg and Bron Brekker are basically maybe even playing field as far as workers. But Bron Breakker's been only working for a couple of years, and he's going up. Goldberg's been flat. Goldberg just does the Goldberg match, and that's the only match. If it goes beyond 3 minutes, he can't do the spear because he's blown sky high. He couldn't do the jackhammer to Undertaker because he knocked himself out twice. So it's a body of work. But when you pull the spear in, I'm looking at it as a worker and a fan. As a worker, I'd rather take Bron Breakker's new one. But as a fan, I'm looking, or as a worker, let's go back. Those two different types of spears also protect Brekker from doing multiple finishes to people. Just my theory. Bill, if you kick out of the spear, what's he going to do? Hit you with another spear? Do it. Now as a worker, you don't want to take more than one. But as a fan, once you've seen the greatest hits of Goldberg, that's it. And dare I say it now, how many fans, casual and hardcore alike, say, oh my God, one more match? Are you kidding me? It's been exposed. Every weakness of Goldberg has been exposed. Unfortunately, they haven't protected Goldberg and his strengths For whatever reason, during a certain time in WWE, they exposed his weaknesses, and he's never recovered from that. Now, Saudi Arabia gives you $2, $3, $4, $5 million. I'm telling my wife, spine infection, herniated disc, whatever it might be, we're doing it. We're going. Go get your money, Goldberg. Wrestle until you're 90, like Hugh Jackman with Wolverine. Do it until you're 90. I don't fault you for that, but guess what? There's no more Goldberg legacy. He's just another dude. And that's fine, because he's a $5 million payday dude, and I want to be that dude too. Dude, is there anything I said that you agree, disagree? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, there's one thing I want to ask you is Goldberg, for the majority of his career, did spears corner to corner. Whereas when I was like finding all these clips for Bron Brekker, he really doesn't do it that way. And I'm wondering, is there more risk doing it corner to corner? If they're, too close to the turnbuckles or something, or maybe, the ring is harder at that point, so it's harder bump to take. But why doesn't Bron do that is what I'm asking.
I'm not exactly sure. It might just be because, well, it's similar to Roman and Jay, so it's kind of like, corner to corner would be different. There is a lot less room in the WCW ring. That's the one, like, the Parker was close in the corner. Then the other guy who took the back of the head and neck on the ropes, that's the smaller ring effect that can hurt a person literally. But I don't know. Different, maybe because of the 23 miles an hour. You can't run that way corner to corner. So that makes it special. Part of the presentation of Bron Breakker's spear is the distance and the run, whether it's down the entryway, around the ring, or bouncing off the rope 3 or 4 times. I just think the evolution of the finish is a more positive evolution where Goldberg has stayed so, not flatlined, but so laterally moving with the spear. Even the spots in the spear. Bron Brekker has more creative ways, because he has people creating it for him, creative ways to hit that spear. Goldberg, while it's a formula that worked for, 10, 20 years, now it's starting to feel long in the tooth, and basically outside of a nostalgia match, which he better just do one a year, what does it matter? It's a been there, done that, seen it type thing. I've seen the thing. That's it.
Is it like a diamond cutter into an RKO? Essentially, like everyone thought at the time, wow, he's done a fireman's carry thing into a diamond cutter. Wow, that's amazing. But then when Randy Orton started doing the cutter, it was like light years ahead as far as setting them up.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling's going to evolve. You can't just stick with, even the Hogan leg drop is just like, that's not a finish anymore. Who cares? Can we make it a finish? Of course we can. But there is a certain evolution that might be negative. I think the evolution of like the spear going to Bron Brekker is very positive. And dare I say it, are we going to get a Bron Brekker Goldberg match? I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know if it's even going to be good. But if you want to pass the torch, Goldberg, that could be a great final match for you.
Do you know what?
But keep taking the Saudi money. Just, dude, I'm not trying to retire you. Don't get mad at me, please.
No, he's going to do his retirement match this year, and I think it was going towards Gunther. But Bron Brekker. If Bron wins, I mean, whoever it is, I know it's his retirement match, but for goodness sake, lose. I think it'd be really important for him to lose, and he wouldn't lose face or anything like that. I think he would be more over if he lost.
I would not recommend the Gunther match. And I know they teased that. It was in Atlanta, one of the pay-per-views, right? That they teased it.
Yeah. It was late 2024, and I think the theory was that Goldberg might turn up in like Atlanta in Raw late January, but I think he had like stem cell injections to sort out some ailment or whatever. But now he's, I think, being cleared back to train now, so it should be happening. I know it's probably going to happen toward the end of the year for the big retirement match. I think.
You want to know why I think that's not going to be a good idea, and it's like the most. Yeah. You might think it's the most innocuous reason. Like you might think, well, of course he's too old, he's stiff, he's injury prone, whatever it might be, which he's not. He's pretty durable even into his late 50s. The reason why Bron Brekker is a better opponent to pick for that retirement match than Gunther is one move that Gunther does that Brekker doesn't do. The chops. What do the chops do to a person when they hit him with that much force? It's not the bump. It knocks the wind out of you. Goldberg's cardio conditioning is always in doubt, is always in question. And unless you want Gunther to throw no chops and the match to go 3 to 4 minutes with Goldberg going over, or Gunther just choking him out, that does nothing for nobody. If you want to go 5, 6, 7 minutes with Gunther, he's going to tie Goldberg up. And by the way, the chop is one thing, but when he starts to tie him up or put holds on him, Goldberg's not flexible enough. It's going to look really, really awkward. But the basis of why, and it's so, like I said, innocuous, like a chop. Yeah, because the chop legitimately knocks the wind out of you. What does Goldberg, with his cardio conditioning, need more than anything else? Air, wind. You knock it out, you knock that match is going to go off the rails quicker and quicker than even the Undertaker match.
So, speaking of going off the rails, one more time we have to do the What Went Wrong segment that you never do anymore. And this one is Willow Nightingale versus Marina Shafir. This one went all over social media. It was on AEW Dynamite last week, but since we record this on a Wednesday afternoon, we didn't see it, obviously, until after the show was recorded, or we would have included it then. But this is going to be quite an easy one. Stevie, what went wrong?
I have not seen this. And by the way, I want to let you and the people know something. You don't know me. You don't know me. You don't know me. You don't know me. You don't remember that infamous promo?
No. That was totally gone over my head.
Mira Shafir went out on an episode, I think it was Rampage, cut a promo, and she repeatedly said to the people, "You don't know me." It was one of the worst promos you'll ever see.
Is it because no one knew her at the time?
Yeah, she could have been stating the obvious, but yeah, there's a segment that was like one of the worst promos you'll ever see. And God bless her heart, she was trying. But she was trying like Charlotte tries, and it just got worse.
Man, that's going to be what went wrong for next week then.
People comment below. Let me know what you think. Some people might not even remember. The people who do remember, Pepperidge Farm being one of them, they will never forget. You don't know me. You don't. It's over. It's so bad. It's like really good. That's what I would say right now. There we go. All right. So this is not going to be hard to break down and analyze, according to you. It already looks like no, because you only got this much room to work with. This is for you, Don Stevens. What are they trying to do?
Oh, that'll become apparent.
I know. I've never thought of power bombing myself through a table. That's apparently what I just watched. She tried to do a post up into the power bomb, and to get like, this is where, why are you doing it on the apron where this girl, I'm just going up here. She's squatting down as low as she can do. She's getting assistance up here. She's squatting down here. Her foot is just about off the apron. Like this right foot right here could have slipped. Then where are we going? You blow your knee out, you hit your butt with a fairly big girl on your shoulder, compresses your spine as you land on this hard apron right here, and then the girl takes a somewhat of a bump through a table. I mean, thank God, this isn't even what went wrong. This is not as bad as it should have been. Kind of, that doesn't roll off the tongue, but she gave her a power bump, but basically the girl, Nightingale, held onto the rope, tried to help her, tried to kick this leg up, didn't get it, and then she just threw her through. And she hit her head on the table. Did you catch that?
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. barely, but still, it's supposed, this part of your body is also supposed to hit. But now, God forbid, like in a Bob Holly sense, there's some kind of piece that comes up, a splinter into her neck, or this cuts her back right here. So in other words, this here is what cut Bob Holly's back. Now you're going all the way across right here. You're wearing an outfit. It's made of spandex. I have a little bit more protection than Bob did, but it's still a real thing that could happen. What are your thoughts?
Do they not practice these things? I mean, I know like people are tired and stuff like that, but surely they must think that Willow she's not double Marina Shafir's size, but she's significantly bigger. You would think that they might practice this. Can we actually do this first? And I know they've been through a match and they're probably more tired and everything, but is this one of those things where I say, you know what would be cool? And then there's absolutely no thought given to it afterwards?
It sure feels that way because unless they ate up the good take, like I talked about before, the good take was in rehearsal, but they were tired during this match. That's another thing too. I'm assuming this is somewhere in the middle to the end of the match, somewhere in between that. The problem is you're fresh at 2, 3, 4 p.m. when it goes to the crash pad. You're protected. You're fresh. But during a match, you have to gauge being tired. Am I going to be this strong? I'm barely this strong when I'm fresh. You can tell there's assistance, there's cooperation, and it's convoluted in a convoluted spot. You know, dare I say it, like I always say, dare I say, if you have the ring, if she's on say she's somewhere, I'm thinking about it, because in the ring it's really easy, because all she has to do is be punching her 10 punches, hooker, table's right behind her. Why not that? Everybody sees it. It's more height. You have her. She knows she's got your head here, and she just falls back through the table. Simple solution. Instead, this girl could blow her knees out, roll her ankles, get a spine compression, do whatever, and then blow a Nightingale. Man, you're trusting to fall backwards, and then you hit your head and your neck and your upper shoulders.
You bring up a good point there. Do you remember, I think his real name's Eric Bugenhagen or whatever it is, Rick Boogs, you know, when he had so much weight and he was like, it was entirely self-inflicted because no one asked him.
The Usos, yeah, he blew his knee out.
Yeah. But yeah, he blew his knee out from basically having his knee in that same position, trying to, you know, lift them both. Obviously, Willow's, you know, helping going on the ropes and stuff like that, but that's prime ACL blowout territory there.
I mean, they're going to keep doing it. This is nowhere near what we've talked about with AEW in the past, but they're still going to do it. And it is you know what would be cool, or you know what we haven't done yet, or why couldn't you do it in the ring? The Dudleys have done that spot with the power bomb where Bubba has the 1,000-yard stare afterwards. Outside of Mae Young, every single spot has been in the ring. Hardly ever, unless TLC and gimmick matches. But hardly, they never did any table spots really in this because that was the safe way to go. Bubba with Devon puts him up, Devon holds the hand up and guides the person down to make sure they go through the table right. And does anybody remember this outside of our segment? No.
Do you, how much harder is a floor bump through a table compared to a ring?
Well, the table's supposed to break your fall no matter what. The bump in the ring in a regular ring is fine. It's supposed to break your fall more instead of hitting the floor. But guess what? Her upper neck, shoulders, and head hit the table, and she still hit her tailbone and spine on the floor. So there you go.
Right then, on that note, that is the end of the Stevie Richards show, episode 41 anyway. For this week. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. We are available on all podcast platforms, of course, as well as YouTube. Brand new episodes out every single Friday. And that's enough from me. I'm sure everyone can agree. So over to you, Stevie. Take us out, give us some Patreon support and all that good stuff.
Thank you very much, James. And thank you to each and every one of you out there for subscribing, clicking the bell to get notified, commenting, interacting, and supporting everything having to do with the Stevie Richards Show. We talked about in the beginning, working on merchandise. We'll update everybody, YouTube community post, and definitely throughout the episodes, and show some of the designs on patreon.com/Stevie Richards. They'll get a first look at some of the designs, maybe even vote on some of the stuff as well. But the main meat of patreon.com/Stevie Richards are the watch-alongs. Bret versus Austin, WrestleMania 13. Some of my matches as well, but right now, WrestleMania season, we're doing Bret Austin, WrestleMania 13. Also, Goldust versus Roddy Piper, WrestleMania 12, with a bonus of Ultimate Warrior versus Triple H with Sable, and then the Mark Merrill reaction promo to him debuting as Mark Bone Marrow. That's Todd Pettengill would say. So, besides all that, we have behind-the-scenes content, interaction, and everything else that the both of us can dream up to bring value to Patreon, as well as here on YouTube. So thank you very much for watching. Have a great week. See you next week for episode 42.